How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final genocide. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, everyone? Everyone, please make sure to mount the like button. Let YouTube know to actually send out the notifications on the stream. Pete, you read Dean Spade's book about mutual aid. Well, we're going to hear a lot from Dean Spade about mutual aid today. It's always nice when we can actually have the people who are writing the books just on video talking about what they believe, because you suffer through the book, but we don't all have to suffer through the book. We can just watch the video. But I appreciate that. Average person, thank you for the super chat. Watching you, Dr. K, and then watching another YouTuber live stream chats made me realize Dr. K is right. Online people are absolute morons. Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's one of those things, right? Because I constantly go back and forth on the issue. Because there is a part of me that I'm like, Karlyn, you should be trying to do content that appeals to as many people as possible. So as many people as possible can learn about the left and they can learn about all this stuff. And maybe, Karlyn, if you just try a different approach and you're nicer and you kiss their ass a little bit more, maybe more people will watch. And then there's part of me that goes, no. I have an aversion to this. I have an aversion to appealing to the dumbest possible people on the internet. I have an aversion to the idea that I have to be nice to people that are just showing up and being overtly stupid. I don't know what it was, but it was yesterday's stream when we were literally watching that 90s presentation about queer liberation, which is relevant to what we're going to be doing today. And people in the chat started saying, repeal the 19th as a solution for queer liberation. And I'm just like, literally half of the people in this documentary are men. The people that invented communists are men. The people that invented queer Marxism are men. Queer Marxism initially perpetuated because of a gay organization entirely filled with men. And you can say, well, they're gay, they don't count. I don't give a fuck. They're still men. And then some people chimed in and they go, Karlyn, they're not men, they're Jews. And I'm like, well, okay, they might be Jewish, but they are in fact still men. So I don't know how repealing the 19th is going to solve any of these problems, because the problems were created, spread, perpetuated by men. no, it was women that did it. No, actually, provably not, asshole. And you're actually watching the evidence right in front of you right now. You're literally looking at evidence that it was men. You're looking at primary source evidence. This is not evidence that was secondary. This is not an opinion. This is not, this is not conjecture. You're looking at the primary source evidence and you still can't get it. And at that point, I'm like, I can't help you. I'm sorry. I can't help you. I can't. This is not an inclusive community. This is not a safe space. This is an exclusive community. We will absolutely exclude people from our community that don't meet the IQ standards or that don't take this seriously or that just want to shitpost and aren't serious about it, because I have too much I want to accomplish to deal with the retards of the internet. That is just reality. And I'm going to talk about some of those things before we get into the show today. I have so many things that require research, that require time, that require focus and attention and a seriousness. That's not to say I take everything seriously. I'm literally building out an empire where I'm satirizing the left. My entire brand now is being built around the idea of satirizing the left, mocking them and teaching people about them by satirizing them. That's part of why I'm calling everything the Red Menace. The Red Menace is a reference to what they called communism in the 50s. I'm satirizing them. So I'm not taking everything, I don't have a giant stick up my ass, okay? I feel like I'm pretty easy to get along with. Some people might disagree, but guess what? The people who disagree that I'm easy to get along with are almost always low IQ retards that just want me to say the things that they want me to say. And that's what most people on the internet want. This is just reality. This is just reality. It's like most people, the vast majority of people on the internet, literally just want to hear people like me say the things they want to hear. They don't care about what the truth is. They don't even know how to look at evidence. A lot of them, and this is a really sad state of affairs, but this is not my fault. I didn't create this situation. Most of the people on the internet that are commenting on these things don't know how to read. I'm sorry the schools are shitty. I'm sorry that your parents didn't read to you. I am very lucky and very blessed in that I was reading before I entered kindergarten. I was an avid reader my entire life. And so, listen, I understand that I read more. Like, I literally in school, my teachers used to take away the books that I was reading because I was reading so much in class that I wasn't reading the textbook, even though I got all A's on everything. But, like, it didn't matter. They didn't want me reading. This is, like, I understand not everyone has my upbringing. I understand that not everyone has parents and grandparents who read to them. They never quite figure it out. And especially in this day and age. But, listen, if you can't read, I'm not interested in your opinion on what the left is. I'm just not. I'm sorry. There's a bar here. There is a bar that we have established that you need to learn how to read first. And if you can't read and you can't interact with primary source material, there are requirements to be in this community and be an active member of it and be participatory. And the reality of that is that I will never have the largest audience on the internet because I will unmercilessly enforce the very bare bones level guidelines and parameters for being a part of this community. And that's because this is a research stream. This is a research stream and an online class. We are trying to do big things. We are trying to document the activist left, which is something that no one has ever done what we're trying to do. We spend our time, most of the time, that's not to say we take a day off every now and again, okay? Sometimes we watch drama content, sometimes we watch Nick Fuentes. You have to take a break. You can't watch socialism every fucking day. I know, I drove myself insane watching socialism every day. I have literally driven myself insane in the pursuit of this endeavor. And a few years into this, I was like, okay, maybe we need to take a break and watch something else every once in a while. So I'm not saying we never take a break, but the vast majority of what we do is research. And we might make fun and we might, crack jokes and stuff like that. But if you aren't taking it seriously, yeah, this is exactly right, Andrew. This is exactly right. I run an AP class in socialism on the internet. An AP class that anyone can attend and anyone can participate in. But if you're going to participate in it, you're going to take it with a certain degree of seriousness, because that's what this is. We have a ton of stuff to do. And I know that there are many people in this community that come to almost every stream I do, and they are just as committed to this as I am. I am not the only crazy person in this community that is committed to what we're trying to do here. There are many people in the chat that take this just as seriously as me, that are out there doing research. You guys would not believe the amount of work that Reagan does, by the way. Like, can everyone just shout out Reagan? Like, when the Center for Left-Wing Studies gets a giant grant, Reagan is the first hire. I'm not even joking about this. Reagan does so much research on her own. You've got people like Nick. Nick is putting together deep dives on Harry Hay, and we're going to talk about that, and, like, finding all this stuff. I have people who message me all the time with stuff that they found or stuff that they watch on their own, and they want me to have it, and it's just like, sometimes I'm actually overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that people send me. There are a lot of people in this community that take this very, very seriously, and it's not that to say that we can't have fun and we can't crack jokes and we can't do that, but I will protect this community. I will be the person that's like taking the bullets to say, no, you fucking retards, get the fuck out, and I will be the one everyone is pissed at on the internet saying, that bitch is so stupid, she yelled at me and she blocked me. I am doing that for all of you. I am taking the arrow in the back for all of you. And if we're honest about it, the people that take this stuff as seriously as I do, they want to yell at all the retards in the chat as well. They want to yell at all the retards in the comments that are making, oh, why did your hair look so stupid? Why are you so fat? It's like, if you're coming here to talk about people's looks, if you're coming here to own the libs or to call Democrats communists or to do any other stupid thing, like, I promise you, the people in my chat hate you just as much as I do. We're all a team. We've been in this together for years. Now, if you're a new person and you take this seriously, welcome. We're really glad you're here. You gotta get custom to the group though, man, because we have a very specific set of norms. And there is a hazing process to be a part of this community. You know, a member of the community, and I'm not going to name who it is. A member of the community actually sent me a lovely note, and this person can out themselves if they want. But I'm not going to name who it is to respect their privacy. But I want to read you the note that they sent me because it actually encompasses this, and this is something that I think new people might want to hear. I'm reading it on my phone. The note says, Dear Karlyn, this is long, but it expresses gratitude. I hope you'll read all of the following. It has been nearly 2 months since I encountered you by some accident on X back in June. How you wound up on my X timeline, I'll never know. But it was a tremendous stroke of good fortune. I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. The power went out at my house. The internet went out at my house. There was a storm. I'm back. I'm back. Who's still here? Who's still here? Who waited the whole time knowing I would come back? I'm back. The internet went out at my house. So you guys may have seen it like right before the screen went black, essentially. There was like lightning and there was a big flicker and the electricity went out and then the internet went out and then the internet box had to reset and now I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. We made it. It might still be a little janky for a second, but we made it. Anyway, so I was reading a note that someone sent me, and I'm gonna just start again because I was at the beginning of the note, and it pertains to what we're talking about. It pertains to what I'm talking about in terms of like, if you're going to be on my streams, if you're going to be doing socialism with us, if you're going to be researching with us, there are some things that people need to understand about this community that I don't think that they always understand about okay, Pete has outed himself. Okay, yes, Pete is the person that sent me the letter. I didn't want to out him, but and I'm not going to out his real name because he told me that too, and I'm not going to do that. But yeah, so we are going to start the letter again. I apologize. I cannot control the storms. I cannot control the internet, but I'm back. I'm back. Here is the letter that Pete sent me. Nope. No. See, this is part of the problem. What we are researching has nothing to fuck off do with the WEF, and it has nothing to fuck off do with the NGOs that you guys are all obsessed with. These are completely different groups. You don't know this because you haven't actually spent any time researching this. I promise you. You have spent time listening to conservative bullshit con artists who have lied to you. You think this is true. This is not your fault that they've lied to you, but we researched the real radical revolutionary far left. The real radical revolutionary far left has nothing to do with capitalistic NGOs. That's conservative bullshit narrative. It has nothing to do with the WEF. That is also a conservative bullshit narrative. I have spent years researching this stuff. You don't even know the differences between the groups. So this is an example of what I'm talking about. June, I have no idea who you are. I've never seen you in my chat before. I am not asking for your opinion. When you have spent 5 years of your life embedded in the radical revolutionary far left, then you can give your opinion. When you have watched thousands of hours of far left trainings and activism and gone undercover at their events and have broken more stories than almost any independent journalist in the country about the far left, then you can have an opinion. Until you do those things, I am not interested in your opinion. You can be here to learn or you can go. Back to the letter I was reading, which June should listen to because she needs to avail herself of this information if she's going to be here. So this is a letter that Pete sent me, and I just think it does a really good job of like articulating information that I do think new people need to understand. So he said, "Dear Karlyn, this is long, but it expresses gratitude. I hope you'll read all of the following. It has now been nearly 2 months since I first encountered you by seeming accident on X back in June. How you wound up on my X timeline, I'll never know." Yeah, I'll turn on the comments on the screen. "But it was a tremendous stroke of good fortune. I'm not sure if you recall, but the first question I ever asked you is, who funds Antifa?" Relevant to what just happened in the chat, right? Your reply was essentially, "No one funds Antifa. They fund each other through mutual aid." Mutual aid is the topic that we're going to be talking about today, so this is, again, really apropos for that. Never having heard the term mutual aid before, I asked, "What on earth is mutual aid?" Your reply was to send me a zine on CrimeThink on mutual aid. So what I did is I sent him actual primary source material about what was going on. I started reading it, and about 3 or 4 pages through, I DM'd you a debunk. And as with every newbie, you basically text screamed at me to not debunk because debunking doesn't matter and it won't change how the left thinks anyway. I sat there for a moment, totally taken back, with my mouth opening and closing like a fish in indignation, thinking, who does this lady think she is? But I sat there thinking about it. I realized you were right. Debunking changes nothing. And then I got intrigued. So I watched your live stream on X a couple of times at first. At first, I was shocked at how intense you were with newbies. I quickly realized, oh, this is a test to see who can hack it. And I realized it was far better to ask questions than to make statements, to just listen and learn. Not long after, I subscribed to your Substack and decided to send you $8 a month because the learning felt so valuable to me. Well, I wanted to let you know the self-assigned homework I've completed since that time in June, just to build my own brain on more of your work. I read the Crime Think paper on mutual aid, and then I got intrigued again and dug deeper. I downloaded and now have read the entirety of Dean Spade's book on mutual aid, all 100 pages of it. I watched your re-education 90-minute intro class twice, your Speak Socialist levels 1 and 2 class twice each, and have gone on to read the following: your Communist Manifesto fairy tale, one of the best books I've ever read. Thank you. Right up there with Lord of the Rings. I don't know about all that, but I do love that book. The 2 anonymous articles you recommended on insurrectionary anarchy and the critique on incrementalism, the Antifa Do-It-Yourself Occupation Guide, Durham's Anti-Repression Committee Resistance, Rebellion, and Repression zine. Right now in my hot little hands, I have zines our group members, any average person, I think, sent me about burner phones, killing the cop in your pocket and turning off your phone, and I'm about to start reading it over the weekend. Once I'm done, I'll start your book debunking the Communist Manifesto. I have connected strongly with both Reagan and Average Person a little bit, and Mizakan as well. The community is being forged. Why am I writing this? Mainly to thank you. Your one text rebuke back in June kicked off an intellectual curiosity I've not felt in decades. I have learned so much from you the past 2 months, and I consider it an honor to be one of your students. Again, thank you, and this is from Pete, and I really appreciated this note, not just because... the main reason I appreciated the note, not just because Pete is obviously showing up and supporting my work, which of course I do appreciate that. Yeah, massive, massive W for Pete. The reason I really appreciated that note is that Pete is a person that belongs in this community. And listen, there's no cookie cutter for who belongs in my community. We have all ages. I have literally from college students all the way up to senior citizens. I have all ages in this community. I have all political affiliations in this community. There are literal national socialists who watch my content, as far right as you can get. There are anarcho-capitalists, libertarians. There are dissident right-wingers. There are conservatives. There are MAGA boomers. There are independents. There are disaffected lefties. I have communists and socialists who watch my content. Literally, I have the entire spectrum. I have men. I have women. I have gays. I have straights. There is no cookie cutter profile in terms of the demographics of my community. But what my community has in common is an insatiable appetite to learn, to ask questions, to be curious, to go beyond the bullshit narrative that we are all fed every single day, because that is what you get online. I can't even go on these websites anymore without just honestly feeling completely sick to my stomach, because it is so easy to identify every single time I am being fed a bullshit narrative. June, you're not going to find the evidence. Again, your choices here are to sit back and listen or to get the fuck out. I promise you, you have no fucking evidence that I haven't seen before. I've been doing this a long time. So your choices right now are to either sit back and listen and learn or get the fuck out. You are not teaching anyone anything here. Still complaining. Still complaining. And see, this is the problem. I don't know how much more clear we can be. I don't know how much more clear I can be. But there are some people who just don't want to listen. There are many, 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 many people out there who don't want to listen. Yeah, that's right. I am the teacher. You are not. Bot knows more than the average person, too. There's a reason I run this community the way I do, and there's a reason I run the streams the way I do, and it's not to make everyone happy. It's because there are things that I'm trying to accomplish. There's research I want to do. There's stories I want to tell. And by the way, the research I'm doing and the history I'm documenting has never been documented before by anyone that's not a fucking communist. I'm pretty sure. And if you think I'm wrong about that, then fact check me and provide me an example of when someone else has done it, because I don't think you can provide any example, because I don't think it exists, because I've literally been looking for it for years and years and years and years and years. No, I don't. I don't. You want to know why? Because this is not the Nick Fuentes Apologist channel. If you want to talk about Nick Fuentes, go somewhere else. We're talking about radical revolutionary socialists. I don't, June, this is the problem. No one gives a flying fuck what you believe. Let me say this again. And this goes for all the newbies. And you can see people are already telling you this in the chat. No one gives a flying fuck what you personally believe. No one gives a flying fuck what your lived experience is. No one gives a flying fuck what you heard on some conservative bullshit narrative driven podcast one time. No one gives a flying fuck what you read in a random like website one time when you were digging into all sorts of conspiracy bullshit, probably as part of QAnon or whatever. No one gives a flying fuck. What we care about is what the evidence shows in the real world. Your feelings do not matter here. If you expect us to put your feelings ahead of what's actually going on in the real world, you opened the wrong door and you walked into the wrong classroom, because it is not going to happen. Newbie's first yeah, exactly. The newbie's first mistake is thinking their opinions matter here. And by the way, my opinions don't matter either. I don't hold anyone in the chat or anyone else in the community to a standard that I don't hold myself to. Okay. All right, see, June, here's what's going on now. You're not listening, and so now I'm going to take away your ability to talk, because no one gives a flying fuck what you're talking about. You are being disruptive. We've asked you to stop several times. We have taken the time to explain why we're asking you to stop. And so now, June, I'm going to take away your ability to talk. You're getting put in a timeout. You're only going to be in the timeout for 5 minutes, June. If you come back at those 5 minutes and you haven't learned anything and you continue to do what you've been doing the entire time you've been in my chat, you are going to be permanently banned from the channel. And there's no negotiation. I am the queen fascist bitch of this channel. And that's it. When the entire chat is telling you to shut the fuck up and listen, maybe you should take that as a hint. Dayton! Hey friends, just here to say the 29-year-old woman on the screen has been more correct on the far left than anyone who talks about the far left. Hey, thanks Dayton, I appreciate that. Especially the 29 part. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So what does this have to do with what we're doing today? Well, it has a lot to do with it. So we are going to be digging in. So yesterday, let's go back. Yesterday, and I did clip this out and put this as a longer clip on the channel. I'm also going to be uploading it to the Substack. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. But if you were not on the stream yesterday, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to go back and watch the documentary. We watched 2 documentaries yesterday, and both of them were good. But the second one, this second documentary, which is like a random documentary that Reagan found on like a book website. This second documentary was one of the biggest mindfucks that I have watched in a while. And it's not because it had information that it's not because it had new information necessarily. I knew all of the information in it. But the reason this documentary was an epic mindfuck is it was filmed in 1999, the year I graduated from high school. Obviously, I'm 29, but maybe I'm not. And it was about queer Marxist activists in the 90s that were talking exactly like they were doing the same thing today. And you start to realize when you're looking at this stuff that was filmed so long ago, you start to realize how big of a problem we are dealing with. Because what was being said in this documentary in the 90s, it came out, I think it was filmed in 1999. It came out in 2003, but it was filmed, I think, in 1999. When you hear the same things about queer activism and anti-racism and struggle sessions that conservatives really thought didn't start until 10 years after that, you start to get a sense of how big this problem is, because this stuff was already embedded in a subculture in the fucking 90s, and it started way before that. But it was completely embedded in a subculture in the 90s, and no one knew about it, and it was happening under everyone's nose the entire time. So if you think I was too hard on that woman who was in the chat trying to tell us what was what, I guarantee you that woman in the chat has no idea about stuff like this, has never looked at it before, couldn't translate this documentary if she had a gun to her head. Because they don't look at these things. The people that have been talking and pontificating about these topics for years, the influencers, the commentators, they don't actually understand where these ideas are coming from, where these ideas were originally birthed, how long this has been happening, what the scope of the problem is. It is actually overwhelming when you start looking at it. Hey, thanks, John. Found you through Adam Green. Thank you for all your work. I've learned a lot, and it's a breath of fresh air to see someone take the left seriously. Hey, I really appreciate that. So we watched this documentary yesterday. I put a clip of it on the YouTube channel and on my Twitter. I'm going to put it on the Substack, too. I just hadn't had a chance yet. I highly recommend people go back and watch this because it was a giant-ass mindfuck, especially for everyone of a certain age, and that age, of course, is 29, but maybe it's a little bit older than that. And just go back and think about the fact that this was going on when I was in high school. It's crazy. One of the people we saw in the documentary is Dean Spade. Now, this is not the Dean Spade that I recognized because I first got introduced to Dean Spade as an activist about a year ago, maybe. I knew who Dean Spade was, but I had never seen Dean Spade 30 years ago. That was a little bit crazy. And we're going to be watching Dean Spade today. This is Dean Spade today. This is a talk that Dean Spade did at the University of California, Riverside at the end of 2023, so it's a little bit older. But the reason I wanted to watch this talk specifically is because it is about the topic of mutual aid. Mutual aid is what funds the far left. So we've got a relatively prominent queer activist that has been a queer activist for a long ass time. And again, shout out to Reagan for spotting this because I totally missed it. Reagan needed to point this out to me. They're like, Karlyn, that's Dean Spade. I was like, holy shit. Master Shake, I got you. Thank you. So we're going to be watching Dean Spade relatively today. Hang on. Gotta pause that video that Stony Baloney just sent me. Talking about mutual aid. Now, this is actually interesting because this actually relates to something that we're going to be doing in the Center for Left-Wing Studies. I want you to notice one of the reasons I chose this video to watch is not because, like, look, Dean Spade talks about mutual aid all the time. Here's Dean Spade 5 months ago talking about mutual aid. Dean Spade is all over the fucking internet. This is one of those activists that we haven't really dug into as much as other activists, but we're going to start doing that because they've been around a long time. They say really controversial things. It's always nice when we can find these ins with figuring out certain activists, and we're going to talk more about that in a second. But another thing I want to show you guys is this. This is on the YouTube channel for the University of California, Riverside Center for Ideas and Society. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? The University of California, we know what that is. That's a taxpayer-funded institution in California, in Riverside, to be exact. The Center for Ideas and Society. Now, what this is I've talked about this in relation to the Center for Left-Wing Studies, which is my new nonprofit that I'm just launching, that I'm just getting off the ground, that we're just starting to build the infrastructure for. You can find it at leftwingstudies.com. You can make a tax-deductible donation if you want to. And so one of the projects that we're going to be doing for the Center of Left-Wing Studies is called the Gender Cult. And the whole premise behind the idea of the project, the Gender Cult, is that at universities all over the country, the biggest perpetuators of this leftist bullshit are the centers. It's not, and a lot of people don't understand this because a lot of people, I spent 10 years in higher education. I have worked at colleges all over the country. I've consulted with colleges all over the country. I spent a long ass time in higher education, almost exclusively. When people think of colleges, they think of places that students go to sit in a classroom and learn from faculty, and then they play sports and they do extracurricular activities and that sort of thing, and they go to parties and they get drunk and do drugs and have lots of sex and all that stuff. And that's all true, okay? That's all true. But another thing that happens at colleges is the leftist Marxist faculty at those colleges set up what's called research centers. And most of the time, these are nonprofit units within the college and university system that basically they're pumping out all of this crazy leftist bullshit and research. It comes from the centers. It comes from these programs that are run by the faculty to perpetuate their research, to get grants, to study these ideas, to write these papers. They usually have students working with them. They usually have graduate students working with them. This is one of the things that I want to monitor and track with the Center for Left-Wing Studies, okay? So, if we go back to this... What the fuck is the University of California Center for Ideas and Society? This is one of those crazy research centers, and we never quite know what the name of it is going to be, because the name could be, like, look at this, Center for Ideas and Society. There's nothing about gender in that. There's nothing about Marxism in that. There's nothing about queer in that. It's so innocuous, right? The Center for Ideas and Society. But if we actually look at the content, if we actually go to their website and we look at their content and look at their website's a very basic website. It's hosted on the University of California Riverside website. Let's go to get involved. Let's go to this link. Decolonizing humanism. What the fuck does that mean? And then we start to see, oh, among the projects they're working on, Decolonizing Humanism encourages interdisciplinary collaborations to address the categories of human and humanism as formations of colonial power and violence. They're working with the Scholars for Social Justice, the University of California, Critical Resistance. Look at this. University of California at Riverside as a center of gravity. Gender and Sexuality Studies Speaker Series, Black Studies Initiative, Black Horror Salon, What Black Studies Means to Me, Black Liberation, The Long History of Black Power, Utopias of Us, Raping My Body, Violating My Soul, Entanglement, 2025 UC Graduate Student Conference. Like, look at all this. Abolition Praxis, this is all about abolitionism. Spiritual, I mean, like, look at the massive amount of bullshit on this. This is just one page. UCLA Racial Violence Hub. What the fuck is that? They're collaborating with UCLA on some bullshit. Like, this is where things and it goes on and on and on. This is why we need to monitor the centers at the universities, because this is literally where all the bullshit happens and no one is paying attention to it. And this is one center at one university. And universities typically have dozens of these fuck-off centers, because any faculty member can create a center like this and get grants and do all that stuff. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about what the Center for Left-Wing Studies is doing. We are not taking on an insignificant endeavor by trying to map the modern left. Mapping the modern left is incredibly complicated, because every single time we find a rabbit hole like this is one center. All of a sudden, we have to map all the places they're working with, all the things they're doing, all of the organizations that they are collaborating with. It is an incredibly, incredibly, incredibly complicated project to do this, because people ask me this all the time. They're like, Karlyn, how big is the left? I'm like, bigger than you ever dare dreamed. I promise you, it is bigger and more insurmountable than you ever dare dream. With the Center for Left-Wing Studies, I'm starting projects that are literally we are going to be working on these projects for years, because every time we find a rabbit hole, we find 20 other rabbit holes off that rabbit hole. And for every single one of those, we're finding 20 other additional rabbit holes off those rabbit holes. And that is the monster that is the left. It is a giant decentralized monster that there could be hundreds of us researching all fucking day, every day, and we would still have trouble mapping all of it. So I'm trying to be really strategic with the Center for Left-Wing Studies. I'm trying to start really, really slow with how we're mapping it. And I'm trying to just build the infrastructure to be able to sustain this project and to scale this project over the course of years and years and years, because quite frankly, I think that's what's required. It is not a simple endeavor that can be done quickly. Even if I had millions and millions of dollars, I still couldn't get this project done that quickly, because I need people who understand the left to help me map it. Not everyone can walk into what I'm trying to create with the Center for Left-Wing Studies and volunteer right away, because there is a training that is required. And that goes back to why we have hazing rituals for this channel. That goes back to why we kick people out who don't want to listen. Because I understand that not everyone on the internet takes stuff as seriously as I do. And I understand that many people on the internet are just looking for entertainment because they have some time off and they're just bored or whatever. But you have to understand that if you're going to be in this audience, we do take this seriously, and there's reasons we take this seriously. We're trying to build something that no one has ever built before, to map what I think is one of the biggest problems that we are experiencing in the world today. It's not the only problem we're experiencing, but it is a massive problem. And it is a massive problem that most people do not understand, because they've been lied to so much by the conservative bullshit con artist sphere. And so while we're getting into this presentation on Dean Spade and mutual aid and all that, I have an idea I want to throw out there. Now, several of you have already volunteered for the Center for Left-Wing Studies, and I'm going to have more information coming to you guys that are volunteering, that are in the Discord. Many of you already have accounts created to be able to input stuff in the Center for Left-Wing Studies. There's going to be more information for you guys coming this week, I promise. But I have an idea I want to put out there, because I do think that, we're mapping organizations related to the left. We're mapping all sorts of different things. I think one of the projects that would be really helpful for us to start with, though, is if people who are interested in volunteering for the Center of Left-Wing Studies, what I want you to do is I want you to pick out one activist, one queer activist, one leftist activist, and we watch all sorts of leftist activists on this channel. I want you to pick out one. I would ideally like everyone to pick out a different activist. Not everyone can do Sophie, okay? Someone's going to get Sophie, and Reagan gets first dibs, by the way. Reagan is the one that gets to pick out the activist that she wants to do, and then everyone else can have her leftovers after that. There is a priority and a pecking order. If people want to pick out the same activist, I will decide who gets that activist, okay? Everyone picks out a different activist. And I'm inspired by this by Nick, by the way, Nick Incognito, because Nick Incognito did a recent deep dive into Harry Hay for us, and that deep dive was actually really helpful. Harry Hay is basically the guy that created queer Marxism in the first place. I want everyone to pick out one activist, and I want everyone to do a profile of that activist. I want to know who they are. I want to know their background. I want to know their social media. I want all their social media logged. I want you to find every fucking speech that these people have given everywhere. I want you to find every organization these people have worked with. I want you to find every school these people have lectured at. I want you to find every single book these people have written. I want you to find out jobs these people have, if they've had real jobs that are publicly available. I want you to find out, I want you just to pick out one activist, and you become like the person covering that one activist, okay? And what you're going to be able to do is then everyone's going to be able to do deep dives and basically create a Google Doc dossier of these activists. And then guess what? Then we can take that information and we can put it all in the Center for Left-Wing Studies. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to ask people who want to volunteer for this. And if you want to volunteer, by the way, just go to leftwingstudies.com and click volunteer, and then follow the instructions to join the Discord, and then follow the instructions on the Discord. By the way, I am testing you to see if you are cut out to be a volunteer by telling you to follow the instructions. If you cannot follow the very basic volunteer instructions that I'm giving, both on the website and then in the Discord, it's not going to work. I need you to actually read the instructions, and I need you to follow the instructions, okay? So if you want to volunteer to help out, go here, follow the instructions. And what I want everyone to do, and we're going to be talking about this in the Discord when I get a chance, is I want everyone to pick out an activist. It could be Sophie Lewis. It could be Emmy O'Brien. It could be Dean Spade. It could be literally anyone it could be Brian Bean. It could be Mary Bowman. It could be any of the people that we love to watch. It could be Philip from Red May. Doing a profile of Philip would be a great idea. It could be Jody Dean. Jody Dean's a psychopath. It could be the guy that runs the Denver Communists. It could be like literally any far left activist. And I want you to pick, it could be one. Yes, they can be from history. Like I said, Nick Incognito did a profile of Harry Hay. Harry Hay was a communist in the 50s. So it could act like it just has to be someone that was a real activist. It could be Silvio Rivera, who was involved in Stonewall. It could be, I don't know. It could be what's her name? Susan Stryker. Like literally anyone. And I want you to do a deep dive into that person. Find out as much about that person as you can. Now, with some activists, like with Dean Spade has done a metric amount of talks. I want the full video list of Dean Spade's talks. I want that documented somewhere. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send up things to be able to notify us when Dean Spade does new talks, when new videos come up. And because you're tracking the person, you're going to be kind of like on their ass, like white on rice. I want you reading all their posts. See, here's the thing is I actually have a dashboard in one of my Discords. I have several Discords that not everyone knows about, but I have a dashboard. And at one time I was like, wouldn't it be a great idea if I could just pipe all their Blue Sky posts into my Discord and I could just read their Blue Sky posts in Discord, which does sound like a great idea, except these people post all the fucking time. And I can't read every single post that every single socialist makes on Blue Sky. I would be on Blue Sky all day. That would suck. However, if you are tracking one activist, and maybe if you get one together, you can do 2 or 3, but just start with one and do a really good job on that one. If you are following every single thing this person says, every single thing this person posts about, every single event this person is doing, then it starts to become a much more manageable thing where we're spreading out the workload among all of us, and we're all super interested in this, and we all want to catch these people doing crazy shit, and we're all working together to do that. So that's the homework assignment, guys. That's what I want people to do. Don't get it twisted. We're going to do the tracking of the organization stuff too. We're going to do the tracking of the research centers. We're going to be doing the zines. We're going to be doing all that stuff as well. We are going to build this up slowly and pragmatically, but I think a very good place to start is going to be this activist stuff. So what I want everyone to do is pick out your favorite activist, make a list. Many of you have been watching Socialism with me for a while. And we can talk about it in the Discord. And then I want you to do a really deep dive into that activist. We're just going to be using Google Docs. So we're going to be using freely available tools. Get a Google Doc set up. Get whatever you want to do it with. And we're going to start accumulating this information. We're going to start all getting it into one place and helping each other out. Center for Ideas in Society, who controls the grants? Oh, June is still here. June, here's the thing, June. I told you that if you came back and you continued with your bullshit, that I was going to permanently ban you. It was made very clear to you, June, that we don't give a flying fuck what you have to say, because I promise you, you've never heard of the Center for Ideas in Society before today. So, June, I'm very sorry. You're kicked off my channel. Goodbye. Spent 5 minutes listening to everything we're talking about, and still continued with her feelings bullshit in the chat. This is why we have an exclusive community, not an inclusive community. So if you want to volunteer for the Center for Left-Wing Studies, follow the instructions on the Center for Left-Wing Studies page. If you are already in the Discord, I will be posting more information about this later. If you are not yet in the Center for Left-Wing Studies Discord, you can get in the Center for Left-Wing Studies Discord by following the instructions on the page. Average person, like I said, people online are morons. Well, we are creating a bastion on the internet, average person, where we are not engaging with morons. We're blocking them and kicking them out. So that's what we're going to be doing today, guys. We're going to be watching this video from Dean Spade. Oh, by the way, check this out. Reagan, you're going to fucking love this, but everyone, you guys check this out. Okay, so I was on Vimeo, and here's the thing, too. Vimeo is also one... A lot of leftists put stuff on Vimeo. So Vimeo oftentimes is like a great resource to find really crazy leftist content when we can find the links to it. And what's really great is once we know someone's Vimeo account, we can go in and look at it. So I was looking at this documentary we watched yesterday. This is on a Vimeo channel called Paper Tiger TV. Paper Tiger TV has been around since the 80s. Check this out. Paper Tiger Television started in the 1980s as a collective means socialist, producing live shows on public access TV. Since then, collective members have produced 300 programs looking at publications and shows ranging from the New York Times to Dynasty. And so basically, this is a channel with a massive amount of archival leftist content. Look at all this shit. They've got protests. They've got stuff going on since the 80s. They've got some good stuff, too. Let's just go down. Like, they've got some really good stuff. They've got some cringe stuff, too, but I'm looking for something in particular. Look, they've got, like, all this stuff about the AIDS movement. This is probably about the ACT UP movement. Noam Chomsky. Look at this. The Columbia University divestment struggle. I'm sorry, what the fuck? Oh, now it's saying I have to sign into Vimeo. But look at this. Columbia University divestment struggle. Like, I bet that's decades old, and it's probably just as relevant now as it was back then. So anyway, the right to the city. What's that? That looks like it could be, yeah, we found a socialist 80s and 90s public access TV archive. Like, this is, guys, this is like our bread and butter. This is like the weird, crazy shit that all of this subculture stuff was like, that was driving all this queer subculture stuff. This stuff is our bread and butter. I don't care if no one's on the internet has ever seen it. I love finding stuff that no one on the internet has ever seen. So they have hundreds of videos on this. Look at this. So we got to go through this. We just have to. There's too much good stuff. I bet we're going to find all sorts of queer bullshit on here. Look at this. Fighting the fundamentalist fig leaf. What's that? What's that? George H.W. Bush. Wow. The Women's March on Washington. I could spend all day on this. I could spend all day just watching all this stuff, honestly. Gentrification is class war. Fight back. There we go. There's protest stuff. You used to watch this, Dave? Is there anything we should be looking for? Let us know. Anyway, we're not going to spend all our time going through all this. I just wanted people to know that I found that, and this is the stuff I get really excited about. This is the stuff I nerd out on because I'm obsessed with this to a scary degree. Anyway, let's go back, because we have a presentation to watch from the University of California, Riverside. And this presentation was given at the end of 2023. And we're going to see what Dean Spade had to say at the University of California. Let's see, Reagan. Reagan found a 7-minute video. Maybe we'll watch this first. Hang on. What is this? Okay, actually, this is a good idea, Reagan. Okay, this is a good idea. Oh, Dean Spade has their own YouTube channel. Look at that. See, Reagan, can you please put together the Dean Spade profile, since apparently you're already doing it anyway? Reagan's already picked out several activists she wants to watch as a part of our new project. Okay. So this is actually probably a good idea. So Reagan has found a mutual aid explainer video. So let's start with that. Let's start with the 7-minute explainer video so that everyone can learn what mutual aid is from Dean Spade's perspective. Then we'll watch the full presentation. Just so you guys know, it does seem like it's starting to rain and thunder out. So there's a storm in my area. So if I disappear off the internet, you know, maybe waiting around a couple minutes, hopefully I come back, but you know, my internet's already gone out once. Everyone cross their fingers for me that the internet doesn't go out again, but it's not my fault if it does, but I'm probably fine if I disappear. That's all I'm saying. All right, let's get this party started, guys. Let's see what this 7-minute video said.
A lot of us are overwhelmed, pissed, and scared. I don't want to wait till the next election. I don't want to just write my congressperson and hope that they'll do the right thing. I don't want to just post things to the vacuum of social media. I don't want to just make statements about things. I want to change how things are. There are a zillion things we can do, and people are coming up with new ones all the time. This video is going to focus on mutual aid projects, what they are, and why we should be developing them right now. Mutual aid projects are a form of political participation in which people take responsibility for caring for one another and changing political conditions, not just through symbolic acts or putting pressure on their representatives in government, but by actually building new social relations that are more survivable. During recent flooding and storms, we saw mutual aid in action as people helped each other survive. Mutual aid isn't just for those big weather disasters, it is also for the daily, routine, life-threatening disasters of capitalism and white supremacy.
Wait, hang on. Mutual aid is for the natural disasters and the unnatural disasters of capitalism and white supremacy. I love it.
Survive. Mutual aid isn't just for those big weather disasters, it is also for the daily, routine, life-threatening disasters of capitalism and white supremacy. People who are pissed about police in prisons are doing mutual aid work like creating prison letter writing projects, where people get connected to pen pals in prison to build relationships, help prepare for release, help prisoners have advocates on the outside, and help build a movement against policing in prisons that is informed and led by the people who know the very most about how the system actually works. Some people are creating jail support programs where people get together to make a schedule and agree to be outside their local jail on that schedule and greet anyone getting out and help them get what they need. Maybe a ride, clothes, a phone to call contacts, information about services or benefits. Some people are organizing community bail funds, revolving funds that can pay people's bail so that they are not locked up while they try to prepare for their defense.
So community bail funds, this is how activists fund their legal defense. And this gained a lot of notoriety during the Black Lives Matter stuff, where people were donating to the bail funds for BLM protesters and stuff like that. But what I want people to understand is that wasn't just for Black Lives Matter. They do community bail funds all the time, perpetually, for every protest they do. And so a lot of people don't understand that when leftist protesters get arrested, number one, they're training them to get arrested. They're almost always volunteering to get arrested. All of their legal fees are going to be covered. They have people at the jails to support them from the moment they get arrested till the moment they get out. They literally send groups of people for bigger events to be a crowd to protest outside the jail. So they're all welcomed out as heroes when they leave. So this is part of the process that the left does for literally everything, even the protests that you never hear about.
Money bail systems are one of the ways that poor people and people of color are given the worst chances in the criminal system. Court support projects are where people coordinate to accompany someone facing charges to their court dates, ideally by packing the court with supporters each time, so that no one has to go alone, and sometimes to influence lawyers, judges, and jury by showing their support for the criminalized person. Some people are coordinating ride systems to help families visit prisoners who are being held in facilities far from home. In Oakland, the Oakland Power Projects are about strengthening people's skills to respond to community emergencies in ways that minimize police contact. When you call 911 for a health emergency, the cops come too, and that often leads to violence. The Oakland Power Projects is about training the community to respond to health emergencies, including mental health crises, chronic health problems, and acute health emergencies, so that people don't have to call 911. People who are scared about the emboldenment of ICE and Border Patrol and increasing deportations are doing things like forming rapid response networks, where people warn each other about immigration raids and help each other hide, and helping immigrants do safety planning in case they get detained so that someone is ready to take care of their kids and elders. Some rapid response projects are even working on training people to show up and physically stop ICE from taking someone away. Imagine if we built that kind of power to stop arrests through rapid mobilization of a lot of people to outnumber cops. No More Deaths, an organization in Arizona, works to save the lives of people crossing the border by putting food, water, and supplies in the harsh desert areas where people who are crossing often die from the conditions. There are so many mutual aid project possibilities because there are so many intense ways people aren't having their needs met in the brutal systems we live under.
Capitalism.
Like food projects like Food Not Bombs, projects where people organize temporary housing for people coming out of prison or foster care by opening their homes to each other. Childcare collectives where people watch each other's kids so they can go to political meetings, court, or jobs. Projects where people accompany vulnerable people like trans people or people with disabilities to medical appointments or public benefits offices and hearings. Projects where people make sure neighbors being pushed out by gentrification have good access to information about their housing rights and accompany each other to housing court, help people read documents and defend themselves from eviction. Projects where people protest landlords who are refusing to make repairs or give back security deposits by directly protesting at those landlords' houses and businesses.
So this is
The messages of this work are
so one of the okay. So earlier, in his note to me, Pete mentioned a book I wrote, which is called "The Communist Manifesto: A Revolutionary Fairy Tale." This is relevant to what they were just talking about. So I'm putting the link in the chat if people want to buy my book. Please feel free to. If you don't want to buy my book, that's fine too. But this is a dystopian fiction book. It's not a nonfiction. This was my first dystopian fiction. It's a dystopian fiction based on the Communist Manifesto. It tells the story of a society where there is a communist overthrow of the bourgeois, and then it follows the descent of what happens after the communist overthrow, and it's really dystopian, and I love it, and it's one of the best things I've ever written, and I'm really proud of it. The reason, though, I bring this up in reference to the mutual aid stuff is that when I was writing this book, one of the things that I've been very conscious of in my writing projects about communism lately is I want people to understand why people get sucked into the far left in the first place. I really want people to understand this because, if you listen to people on the right, you hear them say they're narcissists, they're mentally ill, they just want free stuff, they don't want to work. That's not what it is. And I think that if we don't understand how people are getting sucked into the far left, we have no shot at beating them, because one of the initial story in this book is there's a young mother and she has a sick child and she's trying to get medicine for her child, but the medicine is really expensive and she doesn't have the money, and she's living paycheck to paycheck and she can barely even provide food. And if she can't provide food, she can't provide this medicine, and her child's going to die if she doesn't get this medicine. And guess who comes to save the mother? Guess who provides the mother with the medicine? It was the socialists that were organizing to have the communist uprising. So you're living in this world where you're struggling paycheck to paycheck. You want to do the right things. You want to take care of your kids. You're trying to work in the system. The system is not helping you. And by the way, there are a lot of people in our current world who are in this very similar circumstance. And so what happens? The socialists and communists step up through these mutual aid networks that you just learned about in that video, and they say, we're going to get you the medicine, we're going to get you a ride, we're going to take care of you, we're going to get you food. In the book, I talk about how they ate more food on the communist commune than they were eating without the help of the communists. And so I really want people to see, it's like with this mutual aid stuff, the mutual aid stuff is important because the mutual aid stuff is they're stepping up and they're helping people in the community in a way that they actually need, that actually impacts their lives. So it's not that people are getting sucked into communism and socialism because they're mentally ill or they're narcissists or they just want free stuff or they're lazy. It's not any of those things. They're getting sucked in because the communists and the socialists are the ones providing them with what they need when they need it. The communists and socialists are taking care of them. They're giving them community. They're always there to help out. They treat you incredibly nicely. I've talked about this many times when I've been undercover at communist events. They treat you very, very, very nicely. They're not going to make fun of you. They're not going to question your appearance. You can show up like looking absolutely insane, and they're just going to treat you like you are part of their club and you're one of their friends, and they're going to take care of you. If we don't understand why people are getting sucked into communism, we never have any hope of solving this problem. And the reason I bring that up is Dean Spade, in this video about mutual aid that we're watching, the mutual aid networks are how they provide the aid. This is how they provide the legal defense. This is how they provide help when people are trying to pay rent. This is how they provide food for each other. This is their community. And they're all organizing to do this all the time. Does everyone understand?
The government we can't rely on it. You are not alone. The system is the problem, not the person being targeted by it. And we're going to take matters into our own hands and help each other survive right now, rather than expecting help from the same systems that have a clear history of causing harm. Mutual aid projects don't just help with the current disasters, they help us prepare for the ongoing disasters that are emerging because of climate chaos and crumbling infrastructure. When we build cooperative projects, practice making decisions together, share things, meet more people in our communities and learn about each other's skills and needs, and learn how current systems work and how they are not working, we're better prepared for the next storm, the next blackout, and the next budget cuts. Something really important about all this is that mutual aid is not charity. Charity is where rich people and institutions give tiny crumbs to poor people to make themselves look better. Usually there are a lot of strings attached to what they give, like giving only to mothers, or only to children, only to sober people, or only to people of faith. Charity rides on the idea that rich people or social workers should decide who is a deserving poor and who is the undeserving poor, and that rich people can put conditions on the housing or food or cash they give poor people. Charity blames poor people for poverty. Mutual aid blames the system for making people poor and says everyone deserves everything they need. Charity affirms the existing distribution of wealth and life chances. Mutual aid challenges it. Charity is top-down, mutual aid is horizontal.
That is one of the best ways to explain the difference between the right and the left. The right is top-down. It's hierarchical. When you live in a society based on individualism, it is hierarchical because some individuals will always have more power than others. Some individuals will always have more resources than others. It is top-down. Mutual aid is horizontal. There is no hierarchy in mutual aid. This is one of the things that people don't understand about how the left organize. There is no leader on the left. There's no single person at the top of the hierarchy on the left. It's all horizontal. It's all decentralized. And yeah, there's no coincidence that you're seeing pink triangles in this. We all know where the pink triangle comes from. It's a queer anarchist symbol.
Of wealth and life chances. Mutual aid challenges it. Charity is top-down, mutual aid is horizontal. Charity is about control, hierarchy, and isolation. Mutual aid is about solidarity, liberation, and participation.
Look at that. Capitalism versus communism right there.
People are scared and angry right now and trying to find ways to fight back and support each other. Building mutual aid projects is a way to plug people in, build shared understandings of current conditions, offer meaningful support to vulnerable people, and prepare for the coming disasters. Mutual aid work is not easy. It means forming lasting commitments to doing hard work, collaborating with people even when we have conflict, and facing the heart-wrenching realities of the systems we live under.
Yeah, this is actually really important, and this is true. This is a great note. Right now, mutual aid networks are gearing up to buy school supplies and backpacks for kids and clothes for kids. This is real, by the way. I've actually gotten emails about this from education activists, where, by the way, when they're building up their mutual aid to provide supplies and clothes to kids going back to school, another thing they're doing is they're also training teachers to teach anti-racism and to get around all of Trump's executive orders in the classroom. And they're doing both at the same time.
It is also deeply satisfying work that transforms us from being exasperated, passive observers of the shitstorm we're living in to inspired builders of the new world we desperately crave and need. Stop believing in authority and start believing in each other. We're all we've got. We're all we need.
So that was a great little explainer video on mutual aid by Dean Spade. I really appreciate you sending that along, Reagan. That was actually a really awesome introduction, very appropriate. Now let's move into the full talk. So now everyone knows what mutual aid is, and we've got our primer, and we can see what Dean Spade said about it at the University of California about a year and a half ago.
All right, great. Hey, welcome everyone. This is the next to last session of the On Violence experimental study sequence that is led by the students of MCS 201 here at UC Riverside, course on racial colonial violence. I'm Dylan Rodriguez. I'm the professor for the course.
A course on racial colonial violence at the University of California, Riverside. And look, there are two people wearing masks on Zoom in 2023. It's just so
I teach here at UC Riverside in the Department of Black Study and the Department of Media and Cultural Studies. And the students of MCS 201, you'll see them on camera in just a second, and folks will introduce themselves as we go. It is absolutely a pleasure and honor, a joy to welcome my comrade, my friend, my collaborator, my co-conspirator, Dean Spade, into the session this week. We read Dean's book, Mutual Aid. And we'll proceed as we have with previous,
You know what's funny? I was working on my Queer Marxism book earlier. I was working on the second chapter of it. And I wrote a line in the book. And this is talking about, the book is talking about something that happened in the 50s. And I wrote a line in the book where basically the narrator was calling people that were publishing this queer magazine co-conspirators. And I was kind of looking at that line that I wrote, and I was like, Karlyn, is that a little bit conspiratorial that you're calling them co-conspirators? Like, were they really co-conspirators, or were they just publishing a magazine? But you know, and I actually was taking that line out about 15 minutes before I started this stream. I was like, we're grounding into reality. We're not going to call them co-conspirators. And now we're watching a video where a college professor has literally called a comrade lecturing to their class a co-conspirator. And now I'm like, do they really call each other co-conspirators? Yes, they literally do call each other co-conspirators.
Co-conspirator Dean Spade.
Hang on, listen again.
A pleasure and honor, a joy to welcome my comrade, my friend, my collaborator, my co-conspirator Dean Spade into the session this week. We read Dean's book, Mutual Aid. And we'll proceed as we have with previous
They're
sessions
reading
of
Dean's
this
book in the
experimental
college
study
class,
sequence, where we will ask the students in MCS 201 to kind of instigate and catalyze the discussion. So we'll go for about an hour, a little over an hour, maybe an hour, 10 minutes or so. And I will try to do my best to leave some time near the end of the session for folks here that are in attendance. We have a good number of people in attendance. So I'm going to ask folks in attendance for your grace, because I am positive we will get to a tiny fraction of the thoughts and questions that folks in attendance might want to share. So I ask for your patience and grace with that. Although I do want to say, if folks would be okay with posting their thoughts and questions in the chat, I'd be more than happy to repost those once this recording, the recording of today's study session, is put online. We can put it in the text of the YouTube video and so forth. That's assuming you're okay with that. If you would rather your stuff in chat not go up there in terms of a thought or a question, just say so and I'll redact it. But other than that, welcome, Dan. I want to say welcome to you, and then I'm going to throw it right into some questions from our folks here. So let me flip the camera around, and then we'll get started, everybody. Thanks everybody for coming. Okay, so I think I'm going to ask Liza, why don't you get started?
Okay. Hi, I'm here in the classroom with Dylan. I'm a PhD student in the English department, and I'm taking
fucking
Dylan's
mask and the
MTS
hat.
class. I'm glad to be in conversation with you today,
Yeah,
and
real.
with everyone who's present
Thanks,
at the
Suzanne.
event today. So my opening question is, how have your mutual aid
Yep.
practices been influenced by queer ways of being? And I'm thinking,
what?
of course, of how
You know what I'm gonna do? Do you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just make a page on decodetheleft.com. It's gonna be decodetheleft.com/masks. And literally every single time we watch a presentation where people are wearing masks in the presentation, and we get all sorts of people coming in saying, why are they wearing masks? I'm not even gonna respond to people who are doing that anymore. I'm just gonna say, go to this link, and this will tell you why they are wearing masks in the presentation. And yes, they do think it's real. And yes, this is about community care. They're now hiding their identity. I'm seriously, I'm going to make just a fucking website. Why are they wearing masks? I'm not even kidding.
You are participating in a trans lineage of activism.
Well, nice to meet you. Thank you for that great question, because it is really true that I come to
Hang
all
on.
my politics.
What was the question again? It was something about queer. I want to make sure I hear it. I was thinking about masks. Yes, you can send whatever you want. Please do. I need to make pages like that for every time. This is going on top of the 197 things I have to do on any given day. So, yeah.
Queer ways of being. And I'm thinking, of course, of how you are participating in a trans lineage.
Hang on. We again need to go back and hear the whole question. Okay.
Opening question is, how have your mutual aid practices been influenced by queer ways of being? And I'm thinking, of course, of how you are participating in a trans lineage of activism.
Trans lineage of activism. Yep, we know that.
Well, nice to meet you. Thank you for that great question, because it is really true that I come to all my politics first through doing like feminist and queer liberation work, and then getting disillusioned in the ways that like liberal forms became really dominant and visible in the 90s and onward, until we get this like very law reform focused agenda for queer and trans work, first queer and now trans, or gay and lesbian and then trans, like marriage, cops, military service, hate crime law stuff. So a lot of my initial politicization was that like I became part of the other track of queer and trans liberation work, which is centered in like hating war and wanting to end racism and policing and immigration enforcement and whatnot. And we all had this really big critique of this law and order centered gay and lesbian rights kind of formation that
So Dean Spade, this is actually beautiful, because Dean Spade is laying out the difference between the assimilationist gay and lesbian rights Democrats, liberal kind of like gay rights activists, and the militant queer revolutionaries who are anti-assimilationist. And we've talked about this the past couple of days, but there might be new people, so I don't know. I just like to do a little review every single time. There are two different types of activists in this area on the left. There are the normie gay liberal, like Democrat, human rights campaign, the normie gay rights activists that literally just wanted to get married and just want to be respectable in society. And they're the assimilationists. They are assimilating to capitalist society, to normativity. And then there are the anti-assimilationists, like Dean Spade, that are the radical revolutionary queer Marxists that want to overthrow society. These groups are not the same. They do not get along. Conservatives have kind of like gotten this down to like, we need to separate the LGB from the T. That's not correct. Because there are LGB and T normie, liberal, gay rights activists, and they are not the same as the queer, radical, revolutionary, anti-assimilationists. The split is not, are they LGB or T? That's incorrect. The split is, are they assimilationist or are they anti-assimilationist? So Dean Spade here is saying, you know, I really don't like that the liberal gay and lesbian rights activists, they kind of took over everything and it became all about marriage and the military and all that stuff. That's because Dean Spade is an anti-assimilationist queer Marxist, that it was opposed to like the gay marriage stuff that happened in the 2000s. Listen to this again. Yeah, it's the Q that's the problem, not the T. Yes, and this is correct, John. Gay marriage is assimilationist. It's not anti-assimilation. It's assimilationist to capitalist values. They call gays who get married homonormative. That means gays who have assimilated to the capitalist structure and the capitalist propertied relationship of the straights. Queer activists like Dean Spade never wanted gay marriage to be legalized. They thought it was an assimilationist thing. There was a big old fight about it in the mid-2000s when all of like the human rights campaign and the normie gay activists were putting all this energy into gay marriage, gay marriage, gay marriage. The militant queer activists like Dean Spade were going, we don't want to get fucking married. Why are you guys doing all this? And that was one of the fights that happened. And that's why these two branches of activism are not the same thing at all. But listen again to how them describes this.
Into all my politics first through doing like feminist and queer liberation work, and then getting disillusioned in the ways that like liberal forms became really dominant and visible in the 90s and onward until we get this like very law reform focused agenda for queer and trans work, first queer and now trans, or gay and lesbian and then trans, like marriage, cops, military service, hate crime law stuff. So a lot of my initial politicization was that like I became part of the other track of queer and trans liberation work, which is centered in like hating war and wanting to end racism and policing and immigration enforcement and whatnot. And we all had this really big critique of this law and order centered gay and lesbian rights kind of formation that became.
So they had the critique of the gay and lesbian rights thing because these are anti-assimilationists. John says, so that's why the banning of gay marriage is very dangerous for the right because it will radicalize the assimilated. Ding, ding, ding. Exactly. Banning gay marriage will almost instantly radicalize all of the normie LGBT people who just like literally, these are people who literally just wanted to get married and be left alone. And you also have to understand, and I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll say it again because you're asking a really great question. The normie LGBT, the normie gay rights activists have been fighting with the radical queer activists for decades. So to the normie gay rights activists, they have had people like Dean Spade in their faces for decades going, we don't want to get married. You guys don't want to get married either. You're assimilating to capitalist values. Why are you buying into this system that hates you? They have been fighting about this for decades. And so once gay marriage was kind of won, the normie gays all kind of went home because they got what they wanted. They just wanted to get married. Now imagine a reality in which all of a sudden the Republicans come in and they say, you're not married anymore. Ha ha, psych, we're repealing your marriage. Now the queer militants are going to be really energized because they're going to be like, we told you so, assholes. They're going to be like, the militant queers, if gay marriage gets repealed, they're going to be like, we told you so. We've been telling you this for decades. You bought into a system that hates you. You didn't listen to us. We told you this was going to happen. And the normie gay people, do you think they're going to go running off to the right that just took their marriage away? Of course they're not. They're going to go, we should have listened to you guys all along. And what else do you have to say? So that's what would happen. It would be a massive, monumental mistake. And not only would it, and people might say, well, Karlyn, you're only going to lose the gay people. No, you're not. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to be really, 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 really pissed at the right who aren't gay, have never been in a gay marriage, but maybe they have a gay friend, they have a gay cousin, whatever. And they're going to be like, what the fuck, assholes? Nothing was broken. Why did you do this? So that is why the right needs to keep their little paws off of gay marriage. If gay marriage falls, I promise you the nuclear family is going to fall. Because it's going to radicalize all these people over to the militant queer far left who have been in this activism system for decades. They're going to be hyper energized. They're going to be really pissed off. You just took their family away. Can you imagine how pissed off you guys would be if a politician came in and took your family away? If a politician came in and said, no, you can't go visit your wife in the hospital when they're sick. No, you can't be on there. Like, it would fuck everything up. And I understand that people have like moral objections to all this and whatever, and you want to dig your heels in and be an asshole about it. But sometimes you have to put your feelings aside and look at the bigger picture. This is going to piss off a lot of people who are currently fine and not at all radicalized to the far left. And it's going to send them right over there because the left is going to be going, we told you guys. Now, do you want to get involved? Do you want to get active? Do you want to try to overthrow the government with us? Like, it would be a massive shit show, the likes of which we have never seen.
Became so visible and has become like so mainstream that most people don't even know there was ever like a different agenda that has been ongoing the whole time. And as part of that, in that world of queer and trans organizing, what we were doing, of course, was like all the things that our more radical movements do, like trying to oppose the expansion of policing, trying to stop the expansion of immigration enforcement, trying to stop wars, and always, of course, doing mutual aid in our communities directly affected by those things. So just like supporting people, queer people in prison, supporting people in the immigration enforcement processes, in psych hospitals, in shelters. That's the day-to-day of those movements. So that was my trajectory. So a lot of the first mutual aid work I was ever involved in was just like that kind of stuff, like something, a lot of it was HIV/AIDS work in the 90s. Like, we were trying to get the city of New York to follow its own supposed rules about how people on welfare were supposed to be treated if they had AIDS, which was like, for example, you weren't supposed to be put in a congregate shelter because your immune vulnerability. You were supposed to be allowed to have access to an SRO room, like a room in a single room occupancy hotel. Let me tell you, these are like also horrible, dangerous, terrible places. But we were like, directly supporting people going through this process at the welfare office. None of us being lawyers or anything, we were just other people in the community who would like go and like stay with people at the office and like not let the office close until they would give this person a room. And also then like locking ourselves to the doors of the Human Resources Administration, doing like the direct action piece alongside that, and working in broader coalitions around Medicaid or various Medicaid. That's just like an example, or similar kind of trajectories around immigration or around things with cops or people in prisons. So mutual aid, it's always just part of what movements that want transformative change are doing, unless they become what is unfortunately dominant in the US and many places, this liberal form that's only about changing laws and policies and becomes very disconnected from like day-to-day people who are like kind of having the worst struggles from the system and don't really do anything that actually contacts those people, and often have an elite reform agenda that wouldn't actually do much for the people who are having like the roughest time in the system. And that's kind of, you saw that in the gay and lesbian context, where it's like marriage, it'll get you things if you have property, immigration status, etc. But if you don't have those things, it won't get them for, and then either the person you like, it's not going to, or nobody wants to marry you, like it's not a solution to like the deepest sort of life-threatening problem.
What did I just say? The queer Marxists, back before gay marriage was legalized, were saying, you idiots think you're getting everything you want with this gay marriage stuff, but it actually isn't going to solve any of your problems, and the system still hates you, and the system's still going to turn on you. What did Dean Spade just say? You idiots thought you were going to get all this stuff with gay marriage, but here's why it doesn't work for reasons X, Y, B, and Z. Amazing. It's like I have a crystal ball.
It's this liberal form that's only about changing laws and policies and becomes very disconnected from like day-to-day people who are like kind of having the worst struggles from the system and don't really do anything that actually contacts those people, and often have an elite reform agenda that wouldn't actually do much for the people who are having like the roughest time in the system. And that's kind of, you saw that in the gay and lesbian context, where it's like marriage, it'll get you things if you have property, immigration status, etc. But if you don't have those things, it won't get them for, and neither the person you like, it's not going to, or nobody wants to marry you. You know, like it's not a solution to like the deepest sort of life-threatening problems, or hate crime laws, which enhance and strengthen policing and prosecution, et cetera. So that's kind of that shaping of the queer and trans liberation struggle, having these very different and distinct trajectories. One being more radical or transformative and really opposing racial capitalism, and one being liberal and police loving and military loving. That's, I think, true of kind of so many movements in the U.S. Like those divides are visible. And so since I was on that other side of that radical side of that divide, which I got to because of my own experiences in like welfare and foster care growing up, and then like becoming queer, being like, wow, what's it mean to be queer? What's the politics of this? And then that was the exact moment of welfare reform, like under Bill Clinton, and immigration reform, and the gay and lesbian rights organizations that were emerging at the time and doing the liberal thing, like didn't give a fuck about that. And I was like, that's not that their politics has nothing to do with me. And then I found through my like gay retail and gay nightlife jobs, I found like people doing sex work activism against Mayor Giuliani, people doing activism about how immigrants were being impacted by Giuliani, or how Giuliani was expanding policing and criminalization of unhoused people and people with mental health issues. And so I found like a queer and trans politics that related to the things that I knew I cared about and had been through some of those things. And so that was like my entry point into the mutual aid work, and also just learning frameworks. Of course, mutual aid work had already been going on in all the communities that I'd been part of where we were struggling, but I didn't have it was these people. When I met these people, they were like, yeah, let us tell you about this thing, the Black Panther Party, and how they did these survival programs and why all radical work must do that. That was kind of where I learned the like political theory behind what I think in many ways is organic to work that is being done by people who are really up against the worst conditions.
I think Kay has a great follow-up question that's I think adjoined to this point. Go ahead, Kay.
Yeah, one of the things we were kind of talking about, I'm Kay. I am a third year PhD student here in English as well. So one of the things we were kind of talking about is sort of like our affective responses to the way that the book is written. And so I was wondering if you could say a little bit about how you kind of consider your prospective readers like affective response, like as you're writing, and also how kind of hearing or engaging with people's responses after they've read it has influenced you or enmeshed with you.
I mean, I really wanted this book to be very readable by a large number of people, which is, is an impossible task because it's, all writing and all forms of communication are not accessible to everyone. But I was trying to make it be like, stir you up and get you feel like you can do this, like a sense of generating a feeling of I can participate. I need to participate. I think one of the effects of the liberal reform agenda that's so centered on policy and law and nonprofits is that it's like some people over there are supposed to do this and they're going to take care of it. And I just like send them a donation or have their bumper sticker or their tote bag or whatever. It's like really like there's no role for you, ordinary person who doesn't have this as a career. And so, mutual aid is obviously the opposite of that. It's lots and lots of ordinary people just taking care of each other however we can and doing what's pragmatic in the moment. So even if you have training as a lawyer, if what's needed is a diaper to change, you can change a diaper. You know what I mean? Like it's like based in reality instead of based in like the fantasy of change coming from above. And so I wanted people to get that feeling and to have I had the ideas in this book actually did not come from the COVID time, even though the book was published in that time. I wrote these ideas down because when Donald Trump was elected, I was like, there was all these people who were mobilizable. They were joining all these kind of like neighborhood groups. There's all these people who were like pissed and scared and like, oh my God, this person's language is so wild. A lot of people kind of waking up who were not already awake then. Also, all of those of us who are already like pissed and scared, and I was so frustrated. These people were being told to just like sign petitions online put up by the ACLU saying, protect the Constitution, and like all this like nonsense, symbolic, like people are being misdirected away, or just give money to Planned Parenthood, misdirected away from any actual action to defend their own communities, which of course is needed under Trump, but was of course already needed under all the prior presidents. And I was like, this is the moment. And instead we were just getting like people being told, go, wait for the ACLU to sue Trump and that'll fix things or something. And so at that time I made this website called the Big Door Brigade, and like tried to make this mutual aid toolkit. And I wrote this other article in Social Text about mutual aid. And I was just trying to be like, I also was pissed that in college classes, when people talk about social movements, they don't include mutual aid almost ever because professors are not activists. And so they have not been part of any social movement. So they like write these things about like, what is the definition of a social movement? And it's like, they don't actually write about what people do, or they miss what they did. Like it becomes all about the moment when the policy changed or when the law, it just reinforces these liberal notions. So anyway, I wrote the social text piece, hoping to like trying to, could that get into classrooms? And then I was asked to make that into a book because like, mutual aid was really popping off in the
I wrote this thing basically dragging liberal politics, because I'm a queer Marxist and I don't believe in liberal politics because liberal politics still upholds capitalism. And I wrote this thing to try to get it into classrooms to teach students to also reject liberal politics because it embraces capitalism. And then I turned that thing that I wrote to get it into classrooms into a book, which is now being taught in classrooms at a publicly funded university.
Public sphere because of COVID. But I think my hope, I also included at the end of the book, that kind of stuff that's about like problems in groups.
These are not their moderates. You've been around long enough on the channel that you should damn well fucking know better. When you say they don't like their own moderates, they're not the same. They are not their moderates. They are not on the same fucking team. They're not playing the same fucking sport. You have got to get this into your fucking head. And I'm saying this for everyone. Democrats and communists are not the same thing. Liberals and communists are not the same thing. Saying they don't like their moderates, you're implying they are on the same team. They have never been on the same team. It is a conservative right-wing bullshit delusion that these people have ever been on the same team fucking ever. If you can't wrap your head around this, you are not smart enough to be on this channel. They have always hated each other. They have hated each other throughout history. I have provided literally hundreds of fucking clips of communist shit-talking Democrats over and over and over and over and over again. They shit-talk Democrats. They shit-talk liberals. They shit-talk progressives all the fucking time. They shit-talk liberals and Democrats and progressives more than they shit-talk conservatives. They are not on the same team. They have never been on the same team. Are you still confused? Yes or no? Answer in the chat. Do you get this or do you not get it? Answer in the chat. I'm expecting you to answer me. Fancy action now. If you don't answer me, I'm banning you. Nope. What? Do you understand? Are you confused? Use your fucking words like a big boy. Do you get it? Okay.
Like, that's what I've spent a lot of my life doing, is like supporting, like being in groups that were trying to use interesting experimental horizontal forms, and then trying to support other groups to try different models and solve problems, because it's just really hard to do all social justice work, as I'm sure you know. And so I wanted people to feel
no. Amy, you don't get it. No. Revolutionary versus reform are both socialists. See, this is the fucking problem. It's like, I understand, this is what, no, this is not what it means at all. There are revolutionary socialists and there are reformist socialists, and none of them are fucking Democrats. None of them are liberals. Liberals are not reformist socialists. Democrats are not reformist socialists. Progressives are not reformist socialists. Reformist socialists are still fucking socialists. They just have different ideas about how to achieve socialism than the revolutionaries. Do you understand? I have literally made you guys a picture explaining this. It is at decodetheleft.com/map. Do you understand or do you not understand, Amy? And if anyone else has questions, now is the time to ask, because I am about had it with this issue. Well, I don't know how that could be possible when I'm sitting here screaming Democrats are not socialists. So someone is not listening, and maybe we need to listen a little bit better, because if I'm sitting here screaming Democrats are not socialists, Democrats are not socialists, liberals are not socialists, progressives are not socialists, and you're thinking, I just thought we were talking about socialists. No, you're not listening. Please refer to decodetheleft.com/map if you would like explanations for what all these groups are and why they are different. I have literally drawn you pictures. Thank you, Sam, for putting that up.
When they read this, I wanted people to absorb some of those principles. Like, let's not be assholes to each other. Let's not try to get famous doing this. Let's, like just some of the basic horizontal principles of like, care, compassion, transformative justice principles about dealing with conflict. So trying to make that like, use it. I wanted to make the book skimmable. That's why there's like bullets and charts. Like I just wanted it to be kind of easy. And I wanted people to then take it and like reproduce it as their own, just like lift the content for their zines, that kind of thing, which I think people somewhat have, which is really cool.
Excellent. We have another question that I think is connected to this stuff from Stella.
Well, Chris, the DSA name would not confuse people if people actually tried to use the resources that have already been created for them, which I can see now I have to bring up on the screen, because apparently no one who's chatting in, except for the people who are here all the time, actually pay attention. Do you know what would help people to not be confused? If they actually look at the chart that I made months ago, laying all this out, that is explicit about Democrats, liberals, progressives, democratic socialists, and revolutionary socialists being fucking different groups. It's explicit. So we are not making any excuses for anyone. If you are not listening, that is your problem. If you are not using the resources that have been given to you for free, that is your problem. But if you are confused, it is because you are not using the resources that have been given. You are not listening to the explanations that have been given. You are coming here for some unknown fuck-off reason to hang out and to dunk on the libs. But this is what it is. And the fact that I have to get this pissed off and yell at people over this, like I try, Karlyn, why do you yell at people? Because when I'm nice, people don't fucking listen. When I very nicely say, hey guys, here is a map that literally tells you the difference, and here are archetypes of all the different groups so that you can clearly identify the difference, and I just made all this stuff for you guys to help, and here's how queer blends throughout it, because queer has not done this. Like, when I try to be nice, when I put out resources like this, when I write articles, when I make videos, when I make clips of those videos, because God forbid we not have a clip for fucking everything, I do literally everything people ask. And people still don't fucking listen until I get in their face and I start yelling and I start threatening to ban them. And then they start fucking listening. I made this months ago. God damn it. I wish there was a reality in which I didn't have to scream on the internet all the fuck off time to get people to listen to very basic information that they are asking for.
That's just let me share it. It's nice to meet you, Dean. And I'd like, please, could you talk a little bit about the law related to Black and
yes, average person, thank you.
I shared the question on the chat for help me to
See,
understand
Oh, great.
this is all I'm asking for.
It's a little bit hard
Thank
for me to
you.
hear you, Stella. Would you say it one more time?
you.
I'd like to know, please, could you talk a little bit about law reforms related to unblack and unblackness?
That
Definitely,
wasn't
yeah.
even English. I don't even know what
Yeah,
that
I mean,
person
one of the
said.
ways that I think about this a lot, I teach law students, and they come to school very clearly. The ones who want to change the world, they come to school with a lot of what led them to law school is a story that's so prevalent in the United
Thank
States
you.
that like the law should and does resolve the conflicts of oppressed people. And the main story in the US about that is about anti-Blackness, and that anti-Black racism was resolved by legal reforms ranging from the 13th Amendment to the end of Jim Crow and the Civil Rights Act and these kinds of things, Voting Rights Act. And that story.
No, we still have people arguing with me over on Rumble. Tiffanel, they don't agree with each other. In fact, they hate each other, but their actions are still coordinated. One opens the door. No! Fucking no! In fact, Tiffanel, you're getting banned for the rest of the stream for that. I swear to God. I swear to God. But they hate each other and they complain about each other all the time, but they're still coordinating their actions and they're still all connected. No, they fucking aren't. And if you don't understand that, you are not smart enough to be here. And I am so fucking sick of yelling about this because conservative retards who are here all the fucking time don't fucking listen. Does anyone else want to admit that they still don't fucking get it before I continue? Because I am really fucking tired of having to yell about this. Does anyone else want to admit that they don't fucking get it yet? Because if I find out that you don't fucking get it later or 5 minutes from now, I'm permanently banning you from my channel. Here is your chance to admit that you don't get it again. They're all secret. They hate each other, but they're all secretly coordinating. Are you fucking retarded? Last chance. Anyone else who doesn't get it on this stream today is getting permanently banned.
That kind of like the US law and US Constitution is basically perfect. And you can, if you feed things into it correctly, justice will come out the other side, is like
And Tiffanel, if I ever see you saying something that batshit stupid again over on Rumble, I will permanently ban you, and I don't give a fuck how long you've been on Rumble, and I don't care how long you've been watching my work. You absolutely damn well know better, and the fact that you had the gall to put in that chat, the Democrats are secretly coordinating with the socialists. Like, are you fucking stupid? Everything is a fucking QAnon conspiracy theory to conservatives. My God.
The anti-Black story, because it says that anti-Black racism is over, and it says
where's my weed?
That this fundamentally anti-Black formation, the United States and its laws and its law enforcement, that it's not anti-Black.
This is why I smoke weed all the fucking time.
And then it's used as the anti-Black framing
when I don't,
for all
I
other
yell.
resistance struggles. It's like, be like Black people, get your freedom under the law, and so that requires completely erasing all current harm to Black people under the law and law enforcement and like the economic conditions, etc. So I think it's kind of like totally foundational. And then that's the narrated story is the story about how anti-Blackness was resolved by US law, and that means US law is like perfect and kind of like deified, the Constitution's like this sparkly thing and fix anything. And then the subtext is that colonialism isn't even mentioned. So it's like the story about anti-Blackness being fixed is like the headline in that story about US law, and the story that doesn't even get to be talked about is that obviously colonialism not fixed, like you're just having a settler colony. So I feel like it's pretty profound, and I see my students go through an actual like experience of grief and loss, students from all different backgrounds, Black students who want to come to law school and help their communities,
Yes,
and
they
also
do.
like every other student who's imbibed this story about anti-Blackness and the law, because they're like, oh God, I thought this was how I could do anything about what's happening. And that's the job of law, is to say, hey, look over here, this is where we're going to fix it. And don't be lawless and disrupt this brutal system that's hurting the people you love or people you care about. I guess that's like one cornerstone, but I mean, obviously it's just like the entire law is anti-Black in the United States. It's like all of it.
That's a good premise to
The
begin from, I
entire
think.
law is anti-Black
Right.
in the United States.
I'm gonna
Okay.
take the liberty of asking you.
Actually, I need to listen to that again. I'm still in my head just ruminating on the fact that I am on literally year 3 of every single day of my life. I have to explain to conservative retards that Democrats and communists are not the same thing. You guys do me a favor. You guys try explaining almost every single day of your life with overwhelming evidence and resources that Democrats and communists are not the same thing. And then you still have people coming and saying, no, Karlyn, you don't understand. It's a conspiracy where they're still working together and they might hate each other, but it is a fucking conspiracy that they're all still working together. It's like, every day of my life for 3 fucking years. You would yell too, I promise you.
Over here, this is where we're going to fix it. And don't be lawless and disrupt this brutal system that's hurting the people you love or people you care about. I guess that's like one cornerstone, but I mean, obviously it's just like the entire law is anti-Black in the United States. It's like all of it.
That's a good premise to begin from, I think. Right. I'm gonna take the liberty
The
of
entire
asking,
law is
of asking
anti-Black in the United
trying to think
States.
through a couple keywords.
Thanks, average person. Appreciate
And I think
you.
this is I think resonates with the way you wrote the book. Is that it offers some really, I think, activating definitions of things. Obviously, especially mutual aid differentiated against philanthropy, against charity, against the savior state, and so forth. So I don't want to rehash that, because folks who pick up the book will see that as soon as they open the page. However, there are a couple key terms that I think everyone here, probably folks that are in attendance, would love to hear you think about. So there's 2 of them that our seminar was thinking about an hour before you came on with us. So I'll give you both of them, and maybe you can just think through them with us. One is kind of the related terms, liberation and liberatory.
Oh.
Right? We want to hear you think about that, right? What is liberation? What is liberatory?
That's a good
together.
question.
What
is liberation and
the
liberatory?
second one that we actually spent a lot of time talking about during the seminar is accountability, the concept of accountability. And I'll preface that by saying that part of our discussion had to do with demystifying the fetish, the mythologies, by which I really mean the liberal fetish, the liberal mythologies of accountability that impute the possibility of accountability into power relationships, systems, institutions, bureaucratic applications.
Hang on. Let's move on from the whole Democrats or communist thing. Is this where the idea of reparations comes from? Yes. But I haven't dug deep into the topic of reparations. Certainly there are, and if people have more information about this in the chat, please feel free to put in more information. Certainly there are radical socialists. This guy's a professor at the University of California. This is a class at the University of California. Certainly there are radical revolutionary socialists who have made the argument for reparations. There are also many groups that are not radical revolutionary socialists who have also made the argument for reparations. So I don't think that, based on what I've seen, I don't think we can say that reparations is purely a socialist idea, although certainly socialists do push for it, absolutely, but I have absolutely heard non-socialist groups talking about it as well. But I haven't really studied it that much, to be honest. Honestly, reparations doesn't really come up that much on the far left stuff that I watch. And here's the thing too, is like reparations is restoring private resorting private property. It's kind of like, it's actually not really a socialist idea, but I think they push it to try to advance other things. So I think it's a little bit tricky.
Practices that actually have no accountability. right? So the obvious reference would be police, you know, that kind of irreconcilable antagonism between movements that are desperately trying to resist and survive police violence, anti-Black police violence in particular, and then the subsequent demand being for police accountability, which doesn't fucking exist, right? It's like it's not actually possible to do that. So anyway,
Yes,
given
Alan,
that,
I would.
and we were talking about the university context too, right? How the administrative apparatus of the university so dissipates authority and decision making that it's just basically structured in plausible deniability, right? So again, we're talking about pushing back against the genocidal Israeli state's
I should make Tiffany send a super chat to get
of
unblocked.
Palestinian people and life and being. And part of the demand is for university accountability, which it doesn't really fucking exist, right? Unless it decides it does. So with that, I think we wanted to hear you just talk about those keywords: liberation, liberatory, and then accountability. And then from there, I think I'll throw it over to Brianna after we're done with this point, and then and you can just share with us what you were thinking about. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Dee.
Hang on.
Yeah, I love this incredible.
I just want to show you guys something. So I went back. Remember when we were looking earlier at this paper, the Paper Tiger Vimeo channel? I went back and I got logged in so I could actually see this video about Columbia University, like divestment. Check this out. Columbia University divestment struggle, except this is a divestment struggle about South Africa in 1985. So this is like one of the original divestment struggles before, like now they're doing divestment around Israel. This is like the original divestment struggle. That's crazy. Oh, the sound went out. There's so many things. There's just so many topics to dig into. It's like a never-ending list.
Really hard question. One thing that I often, sometimes my students and I read this book called okay, forget that. Can't remember the name of it. But it's a book in which this person is kind of giving like a breakdown of tons of different radical ideas to make it really easy for people who are starting out and kind of the background of them. And she has this whole section on freedom. And I think it's really related to the question about liberation, liberatory. Like freedom is a word that like, it's like your freedom to buy like name brand razors. I mean, like freedom is just like so, and liberation are so broadly used that it is really important for us to talk whenever we're in a group and we think we're doing liberation work together about like what that even means for any of us, because then we could find out if we have like important differences and B, be like, what, how do we challenge each other's ideas of liberation? I think for me, liberation is one element of liberation is about removing punishment systems that punish us for like trying to survive, for being who we are. So I spent a lot of my life trying to remove things that punish people for their gender expression, like that like make, if you express your gender this way, that make your life like really dangerous or kill you or like not have things you need or punish you for not organizing your family this way. Like I want to get rid of all marriage because it punishes people unless they organize their family in that way. I want to get
rid of all marriage. Really? You want to get rid of all marriage because it's a privatized capitalist relationship that's based on property?
Like really dangerous or kill you or like not have things you need or punish you for not organizing your family this way. Like I want to get rid of all marriage because it punishes people unless they organize their family in that way. I want to get rid of everything that's like the boot on our neck, whatever you know what I mean, right? And then another piece of liberation for me is like, everything for everyone. Like everyone on earth could have all the water, food, shelter, clothing, delightful connection that they need, and there are like a very small number of people running a very intense set of systems that make that not happen. So liberation requires and so a lot of liberation is about just like taking that stuff back, like, oh wow, it's a fiction. Like, the idea of the United States is a fiction, the idea of law is a fiction, like we are like money is a fiction, like we are held under these very intense systems of.
Hang on. I need to clip this. There are so many clips already in this, but I need to clip this. The idea of the United States is a fiction. The idea this is a law. By the way, I'm pretty sure that he's a law professor. I'm pretty sure. Wow.
People running a very intense set of systems that make that not happen. So liberation requires And so a lot of liberation is about just like taking that stuff back. Like, oh, wow, it's a fiction. Like the idea of the United States is a fiction. The idea of law is a fiction. Like we are like, money is a fiction. Like we are held under these very intense systems of control that are very material, but they're also like bad spells that have been cast on us. So part of liberation is like, for me, like, what are the moments where you noticed you were under a spell? What are the moments where you're like, oh my God, there's a lie that like skinny is good and fat's bad. Fuck. Like it's in my head, it's in my heart. How do I clear it? You know what I mean? Oh, the world looks different when I clear it, or when I even get a crack, or I've been told this or that about myself or others, or about sexuality, or about race, or you know what I mean? Like those moments, so like kind of looking for the liberation vibe, because of course, total liberation is not, it's like revolution, it's like total freedom. Like we have no idea what we are under, so much control that like we're like trying to like just find the edges and like, can we together like grab hold of the guardrail and pull it back a little bit, like it's like that because it's really bad in here. So I think liberation, is collective. Like I don't even know what I'm missing until I do collective work with you all, and you're like, Dean, you're not seeing this is living in you too, this is living in the way we're talking about this, we just did this in a way that actually reinforced something we're trying to get rid of. Oops, like that. Liberation is a horizon that we don't really know what we're talking about when we talk about it, but we're like, oh, that felt good, we moved towards that, oh, I just noticed a crack, oh, we just felt like we could do something we didn't think we could do before. So we're like fighting these battles against these material conditions, and also against like the spells that like we are deeply under. Accountability, I mean, I love what you said, Dylan.
Hang on, I'm gonna end the clip. Jolene, no you don't. No you don't. I promise you, you don't. This is another thing that it really bothers me when conservatives do this. What they're saying sounds really great, and I agree with their ideas, and I think this all sounds really great. Do you understand that if this person gets what they want, you don't have parental rights over your kids? Do you understand that if this person gets what they want, you don't have control over the food you get access to? Do you understand that if this person gets what they want, you don't have you don't have the ability to buy a home or land? Do you understand that if this person gets what they want, you don't have the ability to start a business? Do you understand that if this person gets what they want, you are expected to be part of the collective Borg? So what exactly do you agree with? You won't even have a fucking private kitchen in your house if this person gets what they want. Well, their ideas about giving people all this stuff just sounds really great. Okay, so you're a communist. Well, I just want people to have access to everything they need. Okay, but you don't have the same ideas as this person. If you think that you have the same ideas as this person, you have not been paying attention. The left will win because the right allows them to win. The left will win because the right comes along and says, I think that some of these ideas just seem really great. You know what? The right wants to talk. The right wants to pretend that the Democrats are useful idiots for the left. No. Do you know who the real useful idiots for the left are? It's the conservative fucking retards. The real useful idiots for the left are the conservatives, who allow them to win over and over and over and over and over again, while providing exactly zero viable opposition. Yeah, so you're going to usher in communism because you figured out that people are feeding you a bullshit narrative. Sounds like a really great plan. That's definitely going to work.
Accountability is really hard because
What
like a
the
lot of
fuck?
times in our communities, we like that word. We want accountability. One part of it is releasing liberal fantasies, like you're saying, releasing the idea that like the university is going to become something that's like for students. Never has been, never will be. It's like first settler colonial capitalist project, right? Or releasing the idea that the police could be.
The university is for the settler colonial capitalist project. These people, even though they are professors, do not support the university. We saw this over and over and over again at the Socialism Conference.
Useful. No, they are a violent force. So like a lot of our movements help us get like, that kind of clarity around what can't be accountable. But there's also a huge accountability narrative inside our own abolitionist circles about how we become accountable. And that is a very different definition of accountability. The one I've heard Shannon Perez Darby use that I like is something along.
Wait. Dean Spade is Jewish. Dean Spade is Jewish. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. No anti-Semitism allowed.
Lines of like accountability is a process in which I check to see whether my actions align with my values. And you know, they don't. Like most of, you know what I mean? Like we all need a lot of work on that. And sometimes I don't know that unless I get feedback from others. That's the main way we find out that we are not in alignment with our values. Oh, I didn't know I was impacting you the way that I acted in this meeting, the way that I spoke to you, the way that I didn't show up, whatever. And that,
we love
you know, it's like, I wish we had a
Bagels
different
are
word than
great.
accountability, right? I also really wish we had a different word than work for the stuff we do inside social movements when we change that diaper, when we like accompanied someone to that hearing, because the word work is caught up in the wage system. So we're really, it's hard. A lot of these words, we're trying to use them to say things that are beautiful and important. And then they also are heavily weighted with how institutions use them to perpetuate themselves. And we have to, like, that means when we use it, like if I say, let's, you know, hey, let's meet up and go work on the spreadsheet for where we're going to house people who are coming out of foster care. And we both feel the word work in us, and we start to feel inside an avoidance of working on the spreadsheet because we spent our lives feeling an avoidance of our homework and of our wage work. That makes sense. Like that's like emotionally like plugged in for good reasons, because we should be like feeling avoidant of those horrible coercive systems. And so, you know, there's a lot of problems with this. Or the word accountability is being used in some city council meeting, and it's also being used in our group, and we get tricked.
We have a visceral negative reaction to doing the work because work is capitalist, and we've been taught our entire lives to not to hate the capitalist system, and so we can't even work on our own fucking spreadsheet because it's work. Wow.
Into thinking that they're talking about the same thing as us, or they get to just be like, they adopt all of our language and then rebrand their exact same murderous thing. So I don't know what to do with that, because I also don't think the answer is coming up with a bunch of jargon. Then like a lot of people don't understand each other. And I think we have to more, as often as possible, say what we mean right under it. You know what I mean? Like when we say freedom, we mean, you know, end the war in Gaza. When we say freedom, we mean everybody has housing. You know what I mean? We need to like still to keep it short, but like have that conversation more and more and more frequently, or else it's like, oh, everyone here believes in freedom. That's like a liberal move, is to pretend there's no controversy. This is what Zionists love to do. They love to be like, no, we want the same thing. You know, I'm like, no, there are like I'm having a lot of conversations with Zionists who are like, why are you using this label, Zionist, anti-Zionist? Stop using these labels. You know, like they want it to be like if you, and that's why people want there to be no controversy between police people and the police.
That's why Stu Studio's targeting Dean Spade. That's why. Oh, God, it's so disappointing. Stu Studio going and working for the evil empire of the Manhattan Institute is so disappointing. Because I've noticed that all of a sudden Stu Studio is targeting very specific activists, and they're all activists that I covered before him, by the way. I'm just saying. But they're all like Stu Studio has been targeting very specific activists lately. And I think it's because Stu Studio is pushing a Zionist political narrative as part of the Manhattan Institute, and is targeting the anti-Zionist activists that they don't like because they're anti-Zionist and they're pushing the Zionist political narrative. So now that makes, I was wondering, I was like, why the fuck is Stu Studio posting these random old clips of Emmy O'Brien that I literally posted years ago? Why is Stu Studio all of a sudden posting about Dean Spade? We've been covering Dean Spade for a while. Like why all of a sudden is he posting random clips? They aren't new clips. They've been around for a while. So like, why is he doing this? And now all of a sudden it's starting to click for me that Dean Spade is being very aggressively anti-Zionist. Emmy O'Brien has always been very aggressively anti-Zionist. I bet you he's going to roll out the greatest hits of like, here are all the anti-Zionist people that are socialists, and he's going to pretend that he's exposing socialism, but he's not, because Stu Studio always writes these things from a very pro-Zionist perspective about them being Hamas supporters and all that stuff. And listen, man, I can be grateful for the things that he's exposed. I think that if he just focuses on just releasing real information, I would have no issue with this. It's now that it's part of the Manhattan Institute and it's part of an obvious fuck off Zionist political narrative that I'm going to start having an issue with it. And I've been around long enough to know that as soon as someone gets sucked into the Manhattan Institute, they become a conservative shill that has almost no value to us, because all they're doing is lying to people to push a political narrative, taking clips out of context to push a political narrative, doing commentary around the clips that have nothing to do with what's going on in the clips. I've seen this in a lot of the stuff Stu Studio has been posting lately. So while I appreciate the clips, I do not appreciate the commentary, and I do not appreciate the very specific targeting of people just because they're anti-Zionist. There are a lot of reasons to not like Dean Spade. There are a lot of reasons to not like Emmy O'Brien, and they're all around being radical revolutionary socialists and want to overthrow the system. But the fact that they're being targeted because they don't support Israel by an American fucking company that happens, by the way, everyone knows that the Manhattan Institute is funded by Israelis, right? Everyone knows that the Manhattan Institute is funded, maybe not Israeli, but they're funded by Jews. Let me be more clear and more specific. Although I personally don't care if people are Jewish, the Manhattan Institute is funded by Zionist Jews. Christopher Rufo gets his check from Zionist Jews. Stu Studio is now getting a paycheck from Zionist Jews to talk about the activists that are anti-Zionists so they can target them for not supporting Israel. Everyone's clear on what's going on, right? I have no issue with targeting communists. I have no issue with exposing communists. But I have an issue when we're not exposing them for being communists. We're not exposing them for trying to overthrow the government. We're not exposing them for trying to take all our property away. Then we're not exposing them for trying to take away parental rights. We're not exposing them for any issue related to them being communists at all. Dean Spade's been around for years. Why didn't Stu Studio cover him before? Emmy O'Brien's been around for years. Why didn't Stu Studio cover him before? We're not exposing them for being communists and revolutionaries and wanting to fuck up our world. We're exposing them because they don't support Israel. That is the issue that I have with this. It's the same with the deportation bullshit. I don't personally care if Mahmoud Khalil got deported. Mahmoud Khalil's a revolutionary communist. We should be deporting revolutionary communists. Sadly, the Trump administration doesn't give one flying fuck about communism. They don't give one flying fuck about stopping socialism. The only thing they care about is anti-Semitism, 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 anti-Semitism. Do you support Israel? Do you support Israel? Do you support Israel? Do you support Israel? They deported Mahmoud Khalil for not supporting Israel, not because he was a communist. Anyway. No, Pete, I won't. No, I won't at all. No, because Zionist Jews are on the left and the right. The Manhattan Institute is funded by right-wing Zionist Jews. So no, I will not clarify that because that is not correct.
Just people. Let's just have a training about how we're all, you know what I mean? Like, so we want to say, no, there is actually a controversy here. There is a war. I mean, Dylan's work has really helped people use that word more. There is a war, and many other people's work for many generations back, between Black people and the United States, between Indigenous people in the United States, between, poor people and the elite, between the earth and all of its inhabitants and these, ecocidal projects. So that kind of sharpening that, I think, helps us with some of the mess of these words.
Can I ask you a follow-up, Dean? Because I'm going back to the liberatory piece, because, we're talking in the lead up to the conversation with you also about how, and we're going to get to this as well, about how we feel things as we do various forms of political work and study and thought. And so as we were talking, as we raised the question, and as you started talking about liberation, the notions of liberation and that which is liberatory, I felt a certain kind of joy, a certain kind of incitement that was good. It was like affirming. And then I had to take a step back as I was listening to you and think about how the work of liberation is often quite ugly. It's necessarily violent work, that it requires, if we're going to take what you said as deeply seriously as we must, that it require that liberation within that which is liberatory requires destruction. It requires the elimination of certain things, certain systems, certain relations, for that matter, maybe certain people. How do
Is this University of California professor calling for the elimination of people? What the fuck? Again, what does liberation require? University of California, Riverside professor.
work? That it requires, if we're going to take what you said as deeply seriously as we must, that it require that liberation within that which is liberatory requires destruction. It requires the elimination of certain things, certain systems, certain relations, for that matter, maybe certain people. How do we think about that? Right,
what kind of people?
the difficulties, the messiness, the violence of liberatory and liberation work, alongside the stuff that makes us feel joyful as we think about freedom and the possibilities, you know, of coming to some kind of affinity with liberation. I mean, how do we do that? Or how do you?
How do we eliminate people that are against our liberatory revolutionary agenda, but we do it joyfully, guys? We're going to eliminate the people who do not support our liberatory agenda with violence, but we're going to do it with joy. Are you shitting me? Can we listen to that whole thing again? And by the way, when he's talking about eliminating certain systems, of course, the system that he's talking about eliminating is capitalism. That is what they mean perpetually. That means private property ownership. That also means the government, because they believe the government is a capitalist institution and they can only get what they want. We can only achieve full liberation when the system of capitalism is fully eliminated, up to and including the government and the Constitution. That is what they mean. But let's just listen again.
We feel things as we do various forms of political work and study and thought. And so as we were talking, as we raised the question, and as you started talking about liberation, the notions of liberation and that which is liberatory, you know, I felt a certain kind of joy, a certain kind of incitement that was good. It was like affirming. And then I had to take a step back as I was listening to you and think about how the work of liberation is often quite ugly. It's necessarily violent work. That it requires, if we're going to take what you said as deeply seriously as we must, that it require that liberation within that which is liberatory requires destruction. It requires the elimination of certain things, certain systems, certain relations, for that matter, maybe certain people. How do we think about that? Right, the difficulties, the messiness, the violence of liberatory and liberation work, alongside the stuff that makes us feel joyful as we think about freedom and the possibilities,
Bro.
you know, of coming to some kind of affinity with liberation. I mean, how do we do that? Or how do you try to do that? Like, because I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. So I end up getting wrapped up in one thing or the other. I vacillate between those things, but I'm wondering if you have a way of thinking about it.
Yeah, explain that,
I
Dean.
think one thing is that
please.
liberalism wants us to feel really like progress is happening and hopeful, like a really empty hope, and skip grief. So like grief is like the most radical feeling in capitalism and liberalism, I think, because we're just supposed to skip it. People in your family die, you get 3 days off work. Like, your whole community is under attack for centuries. You better, like, do a good job on this college thing and fix it all. You know what I mean? Like, it's very like, do not grieve, do not feel how painful what's happening is, because if you felt it, you might be like enraged and be disorderly and whatever. So I think that's part of this, is like there's much more time spent. And also I think that when we turn off grief, we turn off joy. So then we don't.
I just want to point out, that, yeah, you guys might have heard me yelling earlier, and yeah, some of you got banned today, and yeah, some of you might be pissed off at me for yelling at you for saying that Democrats and communists are the same thing. But I just want to point out to you, is anyone else on the internet showing you literal videos of leftist and socialist and revolutionary college professors who are calling all of the United States fake and who are literally calling for the elimination of people that don't go along with their liberatory revolution? Is anyone else on the internet showing you these types of videos? I think I have earned my right to yell. Okay. I'm just saying.
Because they're on the same, they're like real emotions. And so then we don't ever also have real joy because we're kind of numbed out. And so like in order to like have liberatory emotional range that could prompt us to take proper action, instead of like I join the group and I just want to dominate others or I just want to see my way, that's when we use escalated tactics that's dangerous between us, even is when we're numbed out and hierarchical and people do racist or masculine stuff, whatever. So I think that's one piece of it, is like a bigger role of grief. Also, I love that you said that things need to be destroyed. I just had this conversation with Kelly Hayes. We're talking about sci-fi and like speculative fiction and how I personally hate I really care about speculative fiction. I find it really useful. I'm trying to think about what's going to happen. I think authors are sometimes smart. They've researched a lot. It's really useful.
Oh,
but they all add in all this technology.
By the way, I wanted to tell you guys, I know I'm pausing a lot because there's so much good stuff in the presentation, but I forgot to tell you. So last night on Disenrage, I had a wild idea last night on my spirituality show with Jennifer, where we were talking about, I don't even know exactly how it came up, but I had the bright idea to do like a War of the Worlds style radio broadcast, like podcast thing. And the whole premise of, you guys remember War of the Worlds, right? War of the Worlds was this radio broadcast that took place like, 100 years ago or so, where like they were reading the H.G. Wells stories about the aliens coming to Earth and getting violent and all that. They were reading this on the radio and people thought the radio broadcast was real and people were like freaking out all over the place when in fact they were just reading a story, right? I had a bright idea. What if I used AI to help me put together a podcast sequence, and then I used AI to actually record it so I don't actually have to do it. So I'm trying to figure out ways to work more efficiently, essentially. But I was like, what if I use AI to help me build a script for a War of the Worlds type story that is a first-hand account from behind the counter-revolutionary bunker of the communist takeover of the United States? And so I actually started working on this idea because I was like, I wonder if I can actually do this. And what I did is I took Emmy O'Brien's book, Everything for Everyone. Emmy O'Brien's book is like a speculative fiction about the future communist utopia and how they got there. And I basically put it into the AI. And I was like, AI, I want to write a War of the Worlds style podcast where I'm doing like a serial episode thing where we're basically doing these underground counter-revolutionary radio broadcasts about the impending communist takeover. So we cover it like the downfall of society, and then we cover it through the communist utopia and like the building of it and all this stuff. And this is all from like an underground like counter-revolutionary radio station. And I basically put Emmy O'Brien's book into it, and I was like, you can use Emmy O'Brien's book as inspiration for how the communist revolution might unfold. And the AI actually did it. The AI actually wrote me a whole fucking script for like, here is the first season of Counter-Revolutionary Radio where you're talking about the lead up to the overthrow of the federal government and all this stuff. And then I also found AI that will help me record it so I don't actually have to do all the recording myself, which is really what I want. And I did a really advanced voice clone of my voice earlier, so like I don't actually have to say everything, which is awesome. And I can use other voices too, so I can have like the AI create other voices where it's like different correspondence and things like that. Isn't this a good idea? I'm going to call it Counter-Revolutionary Radio, and it's going to be awesome, and we'll just add it to the top of the pile of other things I have to do. But at the same time, with the tools that I'm using to do this, guess what else I can do? I can create audiobooks of my books that people have been asking for. So I don't have audio versions of my books because I don't want to record them. I recorded one audiobook. It sucked so bad. And so I haven't been creating audio versions of my books. But guess what? Now I have an AI voice clone of my voice where I can have it read the audiobook for me. So I no longer have to do it. And is it perfect? No, but it's fine. it's fine for right now and it'll get better. So, anyway, the speculative fiction thing made me think of it.
To deal with the problems. And this technology is either not coming, or it's not coming before societal collapse, or if it comes, it'll just be designed for military and police purposes, like every technology we use now. So it's just really annoying when they like, and Kelly said that she's writing some kind of sci-fi speculative fiction book, and it's focused on destroying technology. Like, actually what we need to do probably in our revolutionary movements is not about like building more, because most of the technology that's out there, it's all used for like these warfare and surveillance purposes. I thought that was just like, it's like so much destruction has to happen for this kind of liberation. There's just, we like live on an apparatus of like, you know, military extractive exploitive systems, and it's really terrifying. I think one thing that's useful to remember is that like, we didn't set it up this way. Humans have resisted the state form, warfare, inequality of all kinds for all time, and small elites have made them happen, and they've done that through extreme violence. So it's not surprising that violence is necessary to undo it. Like, they're not going to put their weapons down because we make a good argument at City Hall. Right. And so it's going to be it's going to be, and is, and has already been forever, it's actual brutal confrontations, and a lot of that is hidden from certain people, or it's made into like, it's not narrated as violence. It's like, it's okay for the police to like pick people up and kidnap them and put them in cages, and we are like, that's not violent, you know. So that it's like all these narratives hide what's actually happening. And yeah, we have to actually fight back, and when people do, they also get made an example of, and there's extreme repression, and we see that. And so it makes sense that we're scared of it, and also because we're scared of it, we maybe don't study closely enough. Like, well, what are better ways to do it? What are the worst ways? What have been the pitfalls when people have taken up bolder tactics that are absolutely necessary? And I think people are all turned away from that. And one place that I see this, you know, I'm sure many of you know that in August, 61 activists were who are part of the Defend the Atlanta Forest, Stop Cop City movement. They're trying to stop a police training facility from being put on top of this forest in Atlanta. They were indicted on these like domestic terrorism charges and these like racketeering and conspiracy charges, and they're framed and, you know, as like these people who have this horrible, you know, anarchist conspiracy, etc. And one of the responses that a lot of people had was, oh no, a lot of these people are just handing out flyers, they're just trying to stop, you know. And there's a kind of distancing from the fact that, because some of them are using tactics like occupying the trees in the forest, destroying the equipment that's being used to tear the forest down. Of course, that's a great idea, to sabotage the projects of our opponents. They're not just begging the city to stop. They're not going to by begging. We've tried that in many situations. They're also taking direct action, and that it also includes a huge public information campaign that includes flyers and Molotov cocktails and fires and living in a tree, you know. And watching people try to distance themselves, to me, that's like the legacy of this fear of bold tactics and of armed resistance, which has always been part of resistance, here by Indigenous people, by Black people, by Puerto Ricans, by so many different people who've been fighting violence and injustice here and all over the world, colonized people. So yeah, so I think it's really hard. There's a really big narrative about pacifism, and that goes hand in hand with liberalism, and it's supposed to keep us all in our places, doing some ineffective marches once in a while.
Pacifism is a liberal narrative to keep them from being violent. Excuse me?
Violence and injustice here and all over the world, colonized people. So yeah, so I think it's really hard. There's a really big narrative about pacifism, and that goes hand in hand with liberalism, and it's supposed to keep us all in our places, doing some ineffective marches once in a while, and writing things on Instagram, and things stay the same. And then when people try to do something more bold, a lot of times we just throw them under the bus. So there's a lot of pain there.
Yeah, just two shout outs. One to Robert and Mabel Williams, who taught me taught many of us that pacifism shit will get you killed. So just shout out to that lesson from Robert and Mabel Williams. And then secondly, as you were talking about, to bounce back to your reflections on accountability and the difficulties around that term, one of the organizations and a couple of people you introduced me to, Martine Cabral and Amika Tendahi, who created Ujima Medics in Southside Chicago. In conversation with them, I brought that question to them about accountability, and I think it was Amika who really taught me a lesson about shifting the terms potentially to the terms of shared or deep responsibility. So the notion of shared or deep responsibility, I think, provides at least momentarily an alternative, a meaningful alternative, not just a kind of superficial wordplay alternative, but a meaningful alternative to the notions of accountability that you would get wrapped up in liberal magical thinking or the toxicity of corporate notions of accountability. So shout out to Ujima Medics. I'll put a link to their organization in the chat in just a second.
Sometimes I use collective stewardship.
Yes.
Because also responsibility, people sometimes, like Obama love to say personal responsibility, which is basically like it's your fault if you're poor.
Yes.
And so but a responsibility, like there's a really cool book called oh God, everything is escaping me today. A wonderful book by Carla Bergman and Nick Montgomery, Joyful Militancy. And they talk about
Joyful militancy.
Responsibility as, are you able to respond?
Joyful, Mizakan, can you add a joyful militancy to your reading list, please? Thank you.
Are you able to respond to the current conditions? Are you actually responding to what's happening? Or are you responding to a fantasy about change? Or are you like projecting on your comrades when you know what I mean? I love if I recommend people, Joyful Militancy is a pretty fun book. And their thing about responsibility made me like I maybe could find really good ways to use that word, even though it's got these scary like anti-welfare uses by Obama and Clinton and others. But yeah, I think I sometimes use co-stewardship to talk about people.
Yeah, I bet he's already read it too.
Sharing the bag in a group, not having just one person hold the bag, not having one, like actually being like, I'm going to step up and like kind of try to also know what's going on in the whole group. And we're going to all try to know and be transparent with each other. Like trying to come up with words that are not words no one's ever heard, but that also like give you a new feeling that doesn't feel like.
The whole fucking book is up on Anarchist Library. That's crazy. We've got to get back to the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club at some point, too. The Counter-Revolutionary Book Club needs to start up again. We're going to be doing a spy stream tomorrow, so we won't be doing Counter-Revolutionary Book Club tomorrow, but we need to start that again.
Old baggage about how you need to work harder at a job or something that I feel like is in some of these words. But I think adding deep really does help with that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw it over to another one of our graduate students here, Brianna, who's gonna ask a great question, share some thoughts with us, and then I want to invite folks, the 80 or so people who are in attendance. Folks, I think maybe in a few minutes, I'd like to open it up for any additional thoughts or discussion from folks who are here in attendance. So feel free to use the group chat. Otherwise, you can feel free to use the group chat if you just would like to come on live to share some thoughts and ask a question, that kind of thing. Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Brianna.
Hi, Dean. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm in anthropology. My work focuses on anti-Blackness in Kenya. So I have some questions that I feel like you have answered, particularly around like the need for shared definitions or something that's more specific so we can understand and have a language. So I have a question around imagination, and I was reading what you were saying as imagination being deeply tied to belief, and like what we are externalizing in our relationships is an extension of what we actually believe. And so I feel like in the work, what was coming up for me is that there's like an outdated belief that you can't leave anyone behind. We all have to think the same way to do this work, or that, oh, I forgot my third point. But those are some of the notions. And so I'm wondering, like, in saying, like, how do we do this hard work? There seems to be a call to marry the thinking knowing with the feeling knowing. And I'm wondering, like, what is it that mutual aid is supposed to be rehearsing that in your wildest imagination it allows?
I missed one word you said, which is that you study anti-Blackness and then I missed the next noun. What was that?
Oh, I study anti-Blackness in Kenya.
Kenya, cool. Thank you. Yeah. I just wanted to know that about you. That's such a juicy, amazing question. I think that well, one part of this is that because we live in a society that is so atomizing and we're treated as individuals and we're also disempowered, like we always are in a hierarchy, like at work and at school and at church and your family, like there's always a boss and someone else gets to make decisions and they get to give you feedback, but you don't really get to give them feedback. And we're all kind of scared of getting in trouble, like all of that stuff. And we're also kind of passive, like, oh, someone else should take care of our needs. And I don't really need to know how the electric grid that I live in works in, and I don't really need to know how my computer works. I don't know most of how my life works. It just kind of comes to me if I do the things I'm supposed to do
Yeah,
and
real.
be obedient. Like all of that is our context. To me, mutual aid is a potential space to have a different experience. I collaborated with people I knew, not because we were being paid or anyone made us. Already just doing things voluntarily instead of being coerced.
Can everyone who thinks that the left are paid protesters please listen to what Dean Spade is about to say? Please listen very carefully and very closely if you think these are paid protesters.
Like all of that is our context. To me, mutual aid is a potential space to have a different experience. I collaborated with people I knew, not because we were being paid or anyone made us. Already just doing things voluntarily instead of being coerced is not something most of us are used to. I did this because I wanted to, and I felt strongly about something and actually got to do something about it instead of just observe it on TV being like, oh, I'm going to watch what are the people going to say in DC. Like I got to.
Dean Spade does what they do, not because they're being paid, not because they're being coerced, but because they want to do it that way. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to slip up. They're all volunteer. They're not being paid to do this. They consider being paid to do something a form of coercion under capitalism.
I collaborated with people I knew, not because we were being paid or anyone made us. Already just doing things voluntarily instead of being coerced is not something most of us are used to. I did this because I wanted to, and I felt strongly about something and actually got to do something about it instead of just observe it on TV being like, oh, I'm going to watch what are the people going to say in DC. Like I got to be an active participant about something I cared about with others. That is like what life actually is, that is mostly being taken away from us. And that's actually what's happening in our jobs. Like if we're at our jobs, making food for a bunch of people who come to this restaurant or whatever, or making this, whatever, making spreadsheets or whatever we do, we actually are collectively making things with people, but we can't see that because we just are like, oh, we're being made to do it and we have to do it through the wage and the boss is in charge and we have to do it the way they say. We're missing that we actually made the food, and that's because of the fiction of money and the fiction of the hierarchy and everything. So mutual aid is a chance to be like, oh, yeah, okay. I felt like doing something. I did something with others. We got to evaluate it together. We didn't lie and say it was perfect because we weren't being paid or we weren't doing it for media attention or to become famous. So we were just like, oh, fuck, like we did that in a way that accidentally excluded Spanish speakers. We need to fix that. Or like, oh, we did that on a Thursday and that's the same day the church does their thing. Let's move it to Wednesday. Like it's people get the experience of like getting out of our nonsense world in which you just have to do it however the boss or the teacher said, or the parent or your mean husband or whatever the deal is, whoever the hierarchy is, or you have to try to boss the other people around to get your way and not listen to others, to a like, if we listen to everybody here, we'll probably come up with a better plan. None of us are getting paid for this. We'd like to do the best possible plan. And we're all feeling urgent about, what's happening for unhoused people when it's about to rain or whatever. So we actually want to do something that works. So all of that to me feels like it's a pedagogical experience that is transformative for us about who we are. And then it's even more so if we break the law while we do it. So like, I love these stories, like people stealing supplies to, there's all these beautiful stories. People in the 70s doing a lot of different free clinics. Black Panthers had free clinics. There were gay free clinics. There were women's free clinics. There was, lots of stuff addressing like the fact that medicine was, racist and sexist and homophobic and not available to lots of people and whatever. People were doing all these free clinics, like out of a trailer, out of a, basement, whatever, squatting the space or stealing supplies. Like two people are nurses and they steal the supplies at the hospital. People, doing stuff they're not licensed to do, but doing it, in a way that's caring and safe. Like when we break the rules, it's even more like the word empowering. That's one of those words that's like so taken by the nonprofit industrial complex, but I think it actually is empowering. Like it's mobilizing. It's like, we can do it. If I want it to happen, I want it to happen. I'm going to do it with other people. And that process, and then other things like getting into conflict with each other and being like, it's worth it to try to work it out because I care about what we're doing. It's more important to me to work this out with you than to make everybody else hate you. Like learning those kinds of skills, which are very lost in a society that's based in like punishment and individuality and like vengeance and perfectionism. So to me, like mutual aid is like, I feel like it's like what has like grown me up. It's like what's given me like the deepest friendships, like the experiences of humility, the chances to like mess up individually or as a group, and then like figure out what repair is, or the chances to realize that I don't know more than other people in this group. And also when I do know something, I should say it. I shouldn't hold back if I've got a piece of information that could help people, because some people do that, or just like always wanting to be passive and quiet because that gets them through at a job or at school where they get punished for speaking. So I think all of that is kind of what you're thinking, what you're asking about like the thinking and the change in beliefs, but also the change in like embodied skill set. And I also just love what you said, the thing about like maybe we don't need unity or we don't need everyone to come along. That is such a juicy question for social movements, because it's like the idea that we need to appeal to everyone, aka the lowest common denominator, and that when I speak about things I care about, I should be speaking to like Fox News watchers who are never going to fucking listen to me. Like, no, like speak to whoever I'm closest to, who I can bring directly into this work now.
Yo,
right? Like,
so real, Dean Spade. So real. There is no reason to speak to Fox News watchers who are never going to... You know what? Sometimes we have something in common with the communists. Every once in a while, it's like, they don't like Israel. We don't like Israel. We don't like them for different reasons, but you know, sometimes we can find common ground. They don't want to talk to Fox News watchers. We don't want to talk to Fox News watchers. The struggle is real.
Denominator, and that when I speak about things I care about, I should be speaking to like Fox News watchers who are never going to fucking listen to me.
No,
like,
we
no,
shouldn't.
like speak to whoever I'm closest to, who I could bring directly into this work now. Right. Like, and everybody
So
in
real.
the whole society doesn't have to do it. Right now, we're like, society is determined by a very small group. We're trying to make it be determined by like lots more different kinds of formations. But we could take up a project of trying to you know, stop a police, you know, station building project, or stop a pipeline or whatever. And we don't need everybody in the whole world to agree with us. We just need to be like, we are called to do this. This is not okay. You know, and that shift for, you know, we might want to build a certain level of unity in our group, or a certain kind of coalition to try to stop something, so we have more people, or so that we get certain people into the conversation who we think have a lot of wisdom or skills or resources. But we're not like gonna just like bring it so far down and rid it of all of its principles in order to bring everybody along. And that's like the what kind of Democratic Party vibe is, like water everything down so hardcore that it's meaningless, and then tell everybody it has to be.
If I ever write a memoir, it's gonna be called My Struggle, I swear. My memoir is gonna be all of the things that conservatives made me scream about. It's like, I'm going to write my memoir on the eve of the Marxist revolution and be like, or it's going to be like, My Struggle, subtitle, I tried to tell you assholes.
Be that way, when actually, of course, everybody in the Democratic Party wants it to be that way, because they're just elites who want to continue the war and continue the exploitation and extraction. So, but it's like as if that's strategic and like pragmatic. Like we're always told like it's pragmatic to be more conservative. And we know that actually the most pragmatic thing is to support the survival of people in the most trouble right now. And that means always being the most radical. You know, that means being like, oh yeah, and we mean every undocumented person, and we mean everybody in that prison. Now, you know, that's the way to get the greatest level of relief from the worst suffering. And we're told, no, leave out the people with felonies, leave out people who are undocumented, leave out people who don't pass, you know, whatever. So I appreciate that framing.
Another great.
Yeah, I wanted to share something that just came up in the chat, which I think is beautiful, from Rola Yasmin. I hope I pronounced your name right. Breaking the rules is liberating for sure. I just love that as a starting point, especially thinking of abortion meds, gender affirming meds, and restricted and criminalized places. They said, I know it was said earlier that liberation has violent or bloody processes, but that depends on who's looking at it and from what angle. To me, at least, I think that's really well put. I appreciate that reflection a lot.
You know, it's only violent to eliminate people who don't agree with our anti-capitalist philosophy. It's only violent if you look at it from certain angles. If you look at it from another angle, it's just deeply... If you look at it from another angle, it's really an act of love to eliminate people who don't agree with your anti-capitalist liberatory philosophies. You know, you could call it violence, or you could call it an act of love for everyone that's left. He didn't say that, but that's kind of what he meant. It's like it's just all about perspective.
Liza had a really great question that came up in our prior discussion. And again, I want to invite attendees who are not the graduate students in this class. Feel free to keep posting thoughts and questions, anything like that. And I think we can start to open it up for our last 25 minutes or so. But Liza had this wonderful question that I wanted to introduce to you, Dean.
So I guess this touches a bit on ideas of mindfulness and also embodiment, which came up in our discussion today in class. So while reading your book, Mutual Aid, I noticed that mindfulness practices seem to be woven throughout it. And I was curious, Dean, about when meditative and sort of these metacognitive or self-reflective practices became an integral part of your activism. And also, as a side note, if you are influenced by Adrienne Marie Brown's work, because I know she does a lot of work with somatics and mindfulness and self-reflection and so on. And I'll post it in the chat.
What was the last thing?
I said I was posting the question in the chat also, I think.
Cool.
That might have been what it was.
Yeah.
Sounds good,
Thank
Reagan.
you. Yeah, I love that you picked up on that theme in the book. I'm writing something now that's a lot more about the need for self-awareness, emotional self-awareness practices as like essential to being able to relate with one another. I really believe that like movements are just made of relationships. Like the world is just made of relationships. And so our like difficulties relating with others and also being set up to be de-skilled about relating with others and to be de-skilled to even know what we're feeling and how we're impacting others and how others are impacting us, like being numbed out and then also like chasing consumer highs. All of that is like a wonderful way to keep us obedient and in conflict with each other in ways that prevent collective action for resistance. And so I think, just spending whatever 25 years in movements, I'm just like, oh my God, we all need so much more emotional awareness and relational skills. Like that's kind of a lot of what, in addition to having like horrible opponents who have all the money and the guns, we also have like, we really wreck ourselves with the ways that we relate to one another that are kind of stuck in their scripts. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. And yeah, my mindfulness practice, for me, it's been like really vital to go to silent meditation retreats for like, I don't know, over a decade or 15 years or something, in addition to lots of other self-reflective practices, because I want liberation. I want to be free of all their scripts are in my head and they are in how I act and I see it. And I want to not act like that to people and to myself. And so those tools are really useful, and there's lots of different versions of that for depending on what people want and need. And that exists in almost every tradition, some kind of contemplative, reflective practice that could be spiritual and religious or not. It could be in particular communities or histories or lineages, but I do find that stuff to be kind of like essential. And yeah, Adrienne Marie Brown's work has influenced me. In part, both of us are students of the same thing called generative somatics, which is something I, studied in as a student for, maybe a decade or more. And we were often in classes together. And a lot of those ideas are visible in her writing about these very questions about how we have our lives be more like what we believe in, and how we learn how their systems have gotten set up in us, both through like trauma we've experienced and through just like norms that set us up to be less permeable to each other, bad at giving and receiving feedback, scared of conflict, and just like, what does it take to like shake those things loose and have new ways to actually be together and be with ourselves that are more likely to get us where we're trying to go, or like get more of what you want. And so, that is a big overlap in both of our inquiries, because we both use that tool a lot. And I really appreciate also that Adrienne is interested in speculative fiction. I'm interested in these people who are, Margaret Killjoy, so many people who are like both thinking radically about our movements and then also writing interesting speculative fiction to help us try to, like, I just think it's a very useful tool. I don't write fiction, but I read a lot of that stuff for that reason.
I feel like it's important to say that even though some of us don't write fiction, we might also identify as being creative writers at the same time. You know what I mean? So I think that there's sometimes a conflation that a creative writer necessarily has to write fiction or poetry, but that's not the case. I think that this book is an exemplar of how creative writing, an artistic form of writing, of narrative comes into play. So I want to throw it over to Amanda, who you've met before. But before Amanda talks, we were all trying to figure out how you knew Amanda was a UC Riverside student when you first met. I think at Cal State LA, right, Amanda?
Cal State LA, yeah.
So you met each other at Cal State LA, and Amanda shared that you right away asked her, "Are you a student from UC Riverside?" So I'm just curious how that happened.
Because she asked a question about a dilemma that was like the day before I had talked to you on the phone about the same
Okay.
dilemma.
Okay, so yeah, there was so Dean cheated. Okay, all right.
Well, kind of, because I didn't know that. Hi, Dean. So I guess that was what, like a year ago? I don't even remember, but kind of just thinking about those conversations and just like even, I guess, more details in it. Thinking of just like group conflict and like solidarity and just like collective thinking, like a lot of times when we see that organizations have been co-opted and there's, hierarchical, issues and everything. How do we work through conflict as a group when one, we know we kind of just accept that there's money here and there's some good work that's being done, even though there's harm being inflicted, even though it could be singling out like one or two people who might be a little more radical. And even though the group collectively understands this, they agree with it, a lot of times they can just be more passive about it because there's still good work being done, even if it reaches one or two people. So I guess my question is like, what do you do at that point? Because it's not like the money will stop coming in. There's still agendas being pushed and all of that. But in ways as well, is like the harm that's being created to like say those individuals that are singled out then becomes like they're the issue. And it's not one like holding any kind of accountability or really just like pushing them out, if that makes sense. So I'm just kind of trying to think because, it does kind of put people in a spot where it's like, do I want to be like, have solidarity with the person that I know is being harmed? Or do I have to just kind of show solidarity to this movement because there's still some good intention, some good stuff going on, and because there's money there, So it kind of goes back to that, like, do we just say no to the money? At what point do we step away, or what do you do? Because it's I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah. I mean, the longer I'm in our movements, the more I see that funding really, really co-ops even the best work, makes it reach less people and makes the work less mobilizing and more like services for a few people, essentially, even if it's named as something else.
Isn't
Like
that
it always, like
interesting?
what nonprofits do tends to just actually be very small. Like it's like we reached 20 people this, really. They might say, you know what I mean? Or the first year that's, I don't know, there's something very tricky about it. One of the things I think, and also what happens is they take the oxygen out of there and it's like, oh, well, now there's a group doing it, so everyone else doesn't make another group. So I think a lot of times what we just need to do is make more groups. Like I'm like Splinter and people can be in both, but there needs to be a group that's more autonomous, always doing whatever it is we're talking about. And that can say whatever it wants and not be afraid of the funding. And also, as soon as you have funding and people are living off of the group has to be concerned about losing the funding because what people are relying on it. So it just gets bogged down. It gets bogged down with both the administrative stuff of keeping the funding going and, doing the payroll and all of that stuff. It also gets bogged down with like sustaining that form because somebody's relying on it. And they really are, and it'd be really cool if we could just like take the money and run. But I just like don't ever see that happening. I see it really change what we're doing and change how we're doing it. So I think, yes, always solidarity with whoever's being pushed out or, treated badly. That solidarity can be like helping people leave and be like, yeah, let's go do something else. It can also be, or let's have a splinter group that does this and doesn't take the money and can do the parts of this. And that'll often push the group that's getting.
Okay. On a completely separate topic. Has anyone noticed that James Lindsay has started doing videos where he's just talking into his phone? Has anyone noticed this? Because the first time he did this, I was like, Nah, he like this is a one-off thing. James isn't, because I started doing the videos where I just talk into my phone about different communist things, and and those videos actually do really well. When I post videos on Twitter or on YouTube of like me just talking into my phone, talking about some communist thing, they do really well. They get lots of views. It's part of how I broke out of the YouTube shadow ban. And so I started noticing just maybe like a week or so ago that James was posting videos, and he's never done this before, of him just talking into his phone. And when he first did it, I was kind of like, nah. Well, guess what? He's just posted another one. And it's like, it's the same thing. It's like literally just him talking into his phone. And I'm like, bro can't come up with any of his own ideas. James Lindsay is literally incapable of coming up with his own ideas. He steals my ideas over and over and over and over and over again. If I'm doing something that's working, oh, all of a sudden James is talking about it, and James is stealing it, and James is claiming it was all his idea. All right, well, we see you, James. Go fuck yourself. You will never catch up to me, James. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many of my ideas you steal, you will literally never catch up to me, James. It will never happen. I'm years ahead of you. It'll never happen, bro. You're screaming about Nazis on the internet all day. I'm actually doing real stuff. Yeah, and it's always bait. Yeah, it is.
More conservative because of money. If there's somebody else in the same field, that often pushes them to be more aligned instead of getting sucked further and further into that pattern. Sometimes the group that's got the money and is going to get a few things done that are more easily done with money, like they're going to do advocacy for people in courtrooms during the day, or something that's like kind of professionalized. Like, hey, they can go for it, but they're not going to solve the fundamental problems. It's going to be that narrow service or reform work that we know is limited. So, okay, let that happen. But do we want to try to get more community energy, more like mutual aid vibes, more disruptive vibes around some other formations, right? Instead of trying to make that all happen where the money is bogging it down. That's all I've got. I mean, I think this is just a dilemma. Like, this is just like this is our times, is that and especially now in the wake of 2020, when there's more money for anything related to criminal justice reform, because they're trying to control our resistance work and make it professionalized. It is so bad. It's like suddenly people can get paid for this stuff, and of course everybody in our communities is broke, and food is really expensive, and rent's really expensive, and so then people they shape their project into that, and then it's stuck in exact ways that all the prior nonprofits are stuck. Even though we all say, I mean, so many people reach out to me like, we're starting a nonprofit and we want to make it more like the stuff in the mutual aid book, and I'm like, as soon as you guys take the money, you've set up a bunch of problems, around staffing, and who are you hiring and who are you not hiring, and how are you compensating them, and is this a good place to work? And people become obsessed with being like good bosses and good workers, and so then already we're not spontaneous anymore, and we're like, oh, we can't do anything at night, or we can't do anything, like it just becomes like it becomes the wage labor form, so. But I understand why people are doing it. It's not a form of judgment, and I've worked in nonprofits plenty myself, but like it's a real contradiction. There are 2 questions in the chat. Maybe
there are, and but I want to indulge myself real quick before I go to Kay's questions. Kay's got a brilliant question here. Well, one is just an additional point to the one you just made in response to Amanda, which is the thing that goes unstated way too often when we're talking about the funding apparatus, or sorry, the kind of the funding as a center, as a terrible center of gravity that then shapes and deforms intent and work.
Yo, can we just? I know I keep interrupting this. Whatever, it's my stream. I'll do what I want, but I'm not gonna watch that interview Tucker Carlson did with that nun, because I just don't care. But I find the attacks on the nun to be reprehensible. This really bothers me. To see all of a sudden the classical liberal Zionists attacking a nun. And yeah, okay, the nun has a mustache and the nun wasn't wearing makeup. She's a fucking nun. She is a nun. She is not supposed to wear makeup. Maybe could have waxed the mustache, but like whatever. Like, why are you attacking the appearance of a nun? Of all people, you are making character attacks on a nun because you don't like what the nun said in the nun's interview with Tucker Carlson. It's like, and no one, and they all think that this is completely normal. Like, literally all the people they're doing memes of this nun. They're calling this nun the devil. They're making fun of how this nun looks. Like, it's just like, she's a nun. I'm not a Christian, but can we just have some respect? Can we just have, like, a modicum of decency? Just because I'm not a Christian doesn't mean I'm going to make fun of a nun. Just because I'm not a Christian doesn't mean I'm going to make fun of a priest. Just because I disagree with them, it's like, there is no line with these people. Like, I'm absolutely convinced of this. There is no line that these people will not cross. There is no character attack that these people will not make. There is no depth that these people will not sink to if they are literally attacking the appearance and the character of a fucking nun.
It's also often accompanied by this an undeniable megalomania, right? It becomes like so megalomania then begins. It sometimes will permeate and constitute those who are actually running the operation that has attracted the funding. And to pick on an obvious example, the shit that's just gone down with Ibram X. Kendi's organization at VU is wild. It is absolutely wild. And I also know it's the tip of the iceberg, right? But like, there's an obvious kind of, and I don't know him, right? But I'm saying, like, structurally, systemically, it's not an ad hominem thing. I'm saying there's a systemic kind of megalomania that is, I think infused into these funding. Like, the more money, the more megalomaniacal systemic logic is infused into the work, and that can only fuck things up for the rest of the people, right? That can only do that. The thing I wanted to ask you, Dean, before I kick it over to Kay, in response to what you just said about proliferation, about creating splinter groups, about trying to generate more and more autonomy, whatever scale, whatever forms that takes. How would you think or talk with folks here and that watch this video about the kind of the long historical practice of various anti-colonial, abolitionist, liberationist, revolutionary movements in which there was a militant wing to a movement? I'm talking about even a strike, right? Like, what? Not
we
even
need to
a
look
strike,
into this
including a
professor
strike,
too. It's not
especially a
just Dean
strike,
Spade.
right?
We need to look at this
And
guy.
various kinds of strikes, right? Prison strikes, labor strikes, etc. But what do you say about the idea of various movements for, transformation, change, upheaval, whatever, being accompanied by a militant wing, an underground wing, an illicit wing, a wing that is willing to engage in forms of struggle that maybe the rest of the movement is either not capable of engaging or is not willing to engage?
Here, I'll put the link to the video in the chat. You guys can find his name.
Alongside mutual aid capacities and
I'll look into it after I get done this.
Yeah, I mean, especially because I think the intensity of the liberal pacifism story in our society has made less people think that's what they need to do. They've never even heard of the militant wing, of even the things that they love.
Hang on, I've gotten some Rumble rants that I didn't see. Now, one of the Rumble rants I'm not supposed to acknowledge on the stream. But thank you, it's very generous, I appreciate it. Okay. I will look that up, but they asked me not to acknowledge it on stream. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to the Rumble chat. There were some windows that were on top of it, so I do apologize to the people on Rumble. Sundog, thank you for the $10 for defending your space from soft thinking without mercy. Rock on, Dr. K. Hey, I do appreciate that. I apologize to the person who sent in that very generous Rumble rant that I didn't see it. It was my bad. It got covered with it. The Rumble chat is like a pop-out thing on my desktop. It got covered with other things, but I have seen it now.
They don't know about the Deacons of Defense, even though they've studied the civil rights movement, or that, like, that's the vibe, is like we've been denied the story about how that is part of all social movements, just like we've also been denied that mutual aid is part of all social movements. So that you're like, the Montgomery bus boycott, it was some speeches, a march, done, instead of like, oh no, that was like a giant mutual aid project about transportation and food, and like people had defending each other from the cops and the KKK, like all of this stuff. I mean, I think it's interesting. Where is it now? Like I was thinking about,
Thanks,
there was
Reagan.
that police-free zone in Seattle during 2020 where the cops left that precinct, and we had that area in Seattle that was people called CHOP or Chaz. It was on the news a lot, and ways to trying to terrify people. And there were people who were armed at the edges of that.
Yep.
And that was self-organized. It wasn't like everybody who went to that knew those people. Nobody elected them. They were people who are already in organizations focused, like kind of gun club type organizations focused on community self-defense. So I think that's interesting. That's autonomy. Like that's different than something as well organized as like the troops in Rojava or something, but like it is interesting where in our communities, and there already are people doing underground things all the time, whether that's like vandalism or sabotage, or whether that's nobody reports like prison breaks, bank robberies, all that stuff is like not on the news because they don't want us to know it's possible. And they make all these movies that make it seem really high tech inside those places, more than it really is maybe. But anyway, I'm curious about that. I do think we need more people to gravitate towards the more risky kinds of direct action. I am curious how that stuff can be coordinated in the right ways, but not become an authoritarian military style. Because some movements that have run into that problem. And then I think sometimes the fact that people are armed, like I actually, one thing I read recently, it might have been or Margaret Killjoy, somebody was talking like, if you're really drawn to being the person who's holding the gun and de-escalating people in that way, you maybe shouldn't do it. Like we also all need to self-assess, why am I the person who wants to do the different tactics? Obviously we need more people to take on those bold tactics. We also need to do the inner work about whether I'm about to become an authoritarian or whether I've got like, I've seen a lot of people who are drawn to some of that stuff who came from a very violent family and had a really horrible dad, and then they start acting like that dad when they, so how do we cultivate a very, and I think places like Rojava and Chiapas, where you see a very feminist, very militant approach in which women become, women's statuses increase as the movement becomes armed and more militant. That's really juicy for us, given some of the downsides of some of these strategies historically.
Yeah, shout out in this moment to Palestinian youth movement and Palestinian feminist collective on that point. I want to read a comment that I'm going to take it over to you, Kay. I'm going to call him Tony, my friend, my comrade Tony. I'm not going to say his full name because of the content of the comment, but I did want to read the comment out loud because it's beautiful. My comrade Tony says, when it comes to Cop City, well, Stop Cop City specifically, they mean by any means necessary. And Tony is a firefighter, right? So I know that he's writing from this position. The fire department is being brought in as justification to build Cop City and get people that have not thought of firefighters as caseworkers to the policing system. The fire department is very violent and oppressive. It is not mutual aid. We stand back for police when someone is shot. Don't wait for us, please don't. Ujima Medics, that was mentioned earlier, makes this very clear. We reinforce this problem with kids, call 911, etc. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that.
I want to refer you all to, for people who are interested, Margaret Killjoy has some interesting stuff on her podcast about how anybody can form a firefighting unit and like how we should have mutual aid firefighting units that are not part of the policing system, just like Tony's saying, that are an extension of policing work, but instead that because fire is a huge issue, especially for people in California, like what would it look like for all of us who are able to and interested to do community defense through firefighting training? And she has some really interesting stuff about that. So just Margaret Killjoy in general, her podcast, something about the end of it. We live like the world is dying. It's just
yep.
Juicy. Yep.
I'm putting the link up right now in the chat, and then let me kick it over to you, Kay.
Yeah, my question is just like, how do we learn to recognize and differentiate between the kinds of negative emotions that come from things like burnout and perfectionism and like being in a reactive state, like that's rooted in our personal history, and these kinds of things, from like the kinds of negative emotions that come from like being a person and doing mutual aid in late stage capitalism. Like how do we recognize the signs of burnout and find like those real kind of boundaries for ourselves in the work we're doing? Like when society is always trying to deactivate us and kind of convince us of like this sort of consumerist mindset of facing like more shallow pleasures. So like how do we find that those kind of real signs of burnout versus like the kind of discomfort that we need to sit in and work with?
Trans voice, by the way.
I love this question, Kay. Thank you so much. For myself, I think a lot about how I've been trained to seek comfort through things that are demobilizing. So like a lot of like self-care stuff is like consumerism, you know, or is like very individualized, like just you go get away from it all and like, you know, tie it to, you know, the fantasy, the ultimate self-care fantasy in the United States is like a vacation in somewhere like Hawaii, like participate in like the gross, grotesque tourist industry and settler colonialism, you know, that kind of thing. So how do I turn towards what would actually, and or go to Vegas and like be zoned out and numb at a machine that's like literally taking your money for like a very unsatisfying thrill. You know, if you, I don't know if anyone's been to Vegas, but it's like Atlantic City, places like that. You feel like this is what people have been told is fun, and everybody's like so miserable. It's like a toxic center.
I
It's
am not
so
miserable when I'm
heartbreaking.
in
It's so
Vegas,
sad,
but-
and it's also like the worst of heterosexuality, which no one should have to be exposed to. So anyway,
Wow.
I try to actually generative somatics has a question where they're like, what's a resilience activity for you? And it's like, what when you do it afterwards, do you feel more alive and connected, as opposed to feeling more numb? Like for me, I'm like, when I watch TV, I feel more numb afterwards. When I go for a walk outside, I feel more alive and connected. And like, and so this is not to be moralizing. It's totally fine to watch TV. It's totally fine to do whatever we all need to do to get by. But even, and it's not about judging other people for this at all. Even just like for people who use substances, are the substances like helping you feel like connected and creative, or are they making you feel really like numb? And, you know, just like asking ourselves, are tired or checked out, like just asking ourselves those questions, not out of a place of judgment, but just out of a place of like exactly what Kay's trying to think about. Like, am I, finding out about the concept? A lot of people identify as burnt out these days. Like so many people, it's like a huge identification. And I feel a little worried about it when I meet almost every like college student I meet says they're burnt out. And I'm like, ooh, it's just starting, you know, like there's no chance we get to quit. And so the question isn't, is that a reason to never go to the, you know, SJP meeting on my campus again? The question is, what do I need to be well under these conditions that do require resistance? And that can mean sometimes I don't go to the meeting. Absolutely fine. But I can't drop out of the movement for life because, you know, so, oh, do I need to have people treat each other better in these meetings? Do the meetings need to be more fun? Do we need to eat together? Do we need to more music and dance? Do I need, you know, to go to bed earlier, like just whatever, like just, and I think a lot of people are struggling. I think capitalism and like the internet culture has really fucked with us around time. We do all things at all hours. We look at our phones when we're in the middle of the night, in the morning. We're like really like zoned out and addicted around stimulation. And so not surprising, we feel really terrible. And so how do I be countercultural in finding some level of balance? Like, do I like,
actually, I need to get a clip of that. I need to specifically get a clip of that because people don't believe me when I explain the whole capitalism and time thing. And that's actually probably the best capitalism time clip that I've ever seen. Hang on, just getting my clipping tool up.
and I think a lot of people are struggling. I think capitalism and like the internet culture has really like just
rewind a little bit more.
Need to be more fun. Do we need to eat together? Do we need to more music and dance? Do I need you know, to go to bed earlier? Like just whatever, like just, and I think a lot of people are struggling. I think capitalism and like the internet culture has really fucked with us around time. We do all things at all hours. We look at our phones when we first in the middle of the night, in the morning. We're like really like zoned out and addicted around stimulation. And so not surprising, we feel really terrible. And so how do I be countercultural in finding some level of balance? Like, do I like, what does that look like for me? And then probably I can't do it alone because it's countercultural. So how do are me and all my friends going to be like, you know, we're all going to turn off our phones at midnight and go to bed, you know, 3 days a week even, or like, or we're all going to cook something collectively instead of ordering Uber Eats and like destroying the environment and, you know, being completely broke, you know, like, how are we going to eat more regularly? How are we going to sleep? How are we going to like have aliveness around our sexuality instead of feeling like addicted to apps and like judgmental of each other and me? Like all the things that are like, we are human animals. And then how do I not try to do that all by myself? Because then it becomes like a moralizing, like, and it's impossible. Like I can't by myself solve the extreme isolation of this society in which people don't make food collectively. I mean, it's so sad. So I think that's the stuff. And there's some kind of like lifelong discernment that none of us have figured out. But you just eke along like, okay, does this feel like a resilience activity? What's motivating me here? Am I trying to look cool, or am I actually gonna feel better? Like, just, it's like a constant dilemma.
Yeah, this has been a really great conversation. I want to invite
it's been a really
folks
great
that are here
conversation, Dean.
to
Thank you.
consider going to the final session of this on violence experimental study sequence, which will be on Friday, December 8th. It'll be at a different time. It'll be at 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. PST with William C. Anderson. We'll be reading William's book. And I know, Dean and I.
I wonder if the rest of these presentations are
leader
online.
of our discussion, Harsha Walia, we've all been in conversation with William for a period of time now. So I'm looking forward to that. But Dean, I want to say I love you. I thank you. We're all grateful to you. Thank you for offering the gift of this book. I'm looking forward to assigning it over and over again. And and I know we appreciate the gems that you shared today, including and especially the thoughtfulness and the willingness to stay within some of the shared misery, right? The shared fear, the grind that where we kind of endure and suffer all the time. I think that there's something beautiful about the gesture of staying within that together. So I'm not trying to end on anything happy. I don't believe in that. Like, I think that there's something, it's not, even though it is shared misery, there's something beautiful about staying in that with each other. So contrary to the liberal tendency to want to end on a note of some kind of false optimism, I want to stay with that and say that this is exactly why I think it's important to pay attention to the lessons that you teach us about proliferation, about fostering and cultivating autonomy, about enjoying all of the different things that mutual aid can do, especially because it activates us within and against our collective suffering and misery and all of the asymmetries of that suffering and misery that we inhabit. So just thank you, Dean.
Thanks for having me. I want to just also refer you all on my website, which is deanspade.net. There's tons and tons and tons of videos that go deeper into what's in this book about like the problems. So if you're doing mutual aid work or any other organizing, there might be stuff in those videos about just like how you deal with all the nonsense that we all have to deal with. It's so hard to do this work. So I hope, and feel free to reach out to me if you ever want support with things that are in those videos or in the book. I wish you all luck in making it all happen.
Dean will write you back. Dean will write you back, and go to Big Door Brigade, Dean's website, that I've gone to many times as well. If folks here watching this video later that want to get connected to things, go to Big Door Brigade. There are no other resources that I would count on more. So hey, Dean, love you. Be good to yourself. I know you're having fun out here in LA. So yeah, do your thing. Thank you for giving us some time today. Appreciate it. See you soon.
All right. So that's the end of that presentation. We're not going to watch anything more today, but I do kind of wonder, does that guy have any more presentations from this class on this here YouTube channel? Are there any more? I mean, look at, like, there's a whole, like, this again, this is like oh, look, Angela Davis. Angela Davis. Would you look at that on this YouTube channel? Skin Theory? What the fuck is this? Skin Theory? Uh-oh. What else? Oh, here's another violence one. Atmospheres of violence, structuring antagonism, and oh, look at this. What is this? We're not going to watch this now, but maybe we'll watch this tomorrow. What is this about? Eric Stanley, I recognize that name. Atmospheres of violence. This is from 9 months ago. Structuring antagonism and the trans queer ungovernable. What the fuck is this about? Join us for a sequence of live online conversations with authors of key texts addressing violence, empire, liberation, solidarity, abolition, and the problem of man-human. The short blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't say what it's about. Well, we'll have to watch that tomorrow. Save. Watch later. Thank you. We'll have to watch that tomorrow. I'm just going to pull that up now. What else do we have on this? What other violence webinars do we have on this? Care, repair, and otherwise, a roundtable. That's going to be about community care. Abolishing California prisons. Okay. Palestine. Ooh, Black Scare, Red Scare, theorizing capitalist racism in America. Ooh, that sounds like a good. Oh, look at all these fucking awesome presentations. Another well, who would have thunk it, guys? Who would have thunk it? Another research center in another taxpayer-funded university where there's all these presentations that no one has ever bothered to watch from all these activists. Disturbing the Lines, an invitation for Israelis and Jews by Israelis and Jews. Okay, there's the Dean Spade one we just watched. Being Property Once Myself. What's that about? Is the 5th generation of theories of revolution still coming? Don't know what that means. Spirituality and abolition. Disability justice, reproductive justice, sexual agency. Oh, add that to the watch later list. God. So much. How to deal with trolls? Really? Really? Add. The violence of power? Oh, shit. Black liberation. Rethinking, retention, redefining faculty diversity. That's not going to be what you think it is. Communication and care. Look at all this. This goes back years. This goes back years. Catholicism in struggle community, clergy, and the impact of Vatican II in Latin America. Okay, that's probably not going to be as interesting as I originally thought it was. Teaching and learning abolition. Wow. All right, well, yet another treasure trove of videos. This is why I never get anything done. This is why I feel like I never get anything done. Because it's like I have all these lists of projects I'm working on and I'm working diligently on those projects. And then all of a sudden the universe is like, Karlyn, I'm going to give you 50 more things to do. And I'm like, oh, great. Can someone just give me a multi-million-dollar grant just to hire people and we can spend all our time researching this stuff? I'm serious. Someone has to have a rich uncle or something. Can someone legitimately just make a donation to the Center for Left-Wing Studies for like $5 million? Can someone do that? Can someone find me like a millionaire donor? And literally what I want to do with that money is I want to hire a bunch of people that I have trained and I want to sit around all day going through all of this stuff and making a giant map of the current modern left. And I want to make a giant directory of activists and I want to be following and tracking all these people in real time. Someone has a rich uncle and I need you to call in a favor with the rich uncle to tell the rich uncle, have you ever thought about funding research into the radical revolutionary far left? Because you can do that, and I know something that you can fund, and I know. Well, you've already been very generous, and I do appreciate your generosity very much. And listen, I appreciate the donations of everyone who's given money to the Center for Left Wing Studies. If you want to make a tax deductible donation, you can head over to the website and do that. But really my big goal with this is I want to raise enough money, whether that be through donations or grants or we're going to find one rich donor. I only need one rich donor, guys. I need one. And I need that one rich donor to make a tax deductible donation to the Center for Left-Wing Studies to fund my projects in this area, because I need to have people on this full time, because there's so many things that we need to look at and it's so complicated, and listen, man, I wish I didn't need money to do this. I really wish we didn't need money to do this, but the fact is that I could have a team of 100 people that I've trained working full time on this, and it would still take us years. It would still take us years. Thanks, two ladies. I really do appreciate it. But in the meantime, does anyone... okay, so maybe no one has a rich uncle. Does anyone know how to write grants? I have like this much grant writing experience. I've done it a couple times. Like, I can do it if I have to, but can anyone help me write grants, please? Can anyone help me apply for grants? Like, can someone come and volunteer to help me do my biggest enemy is time. The capitalist problem of time. I don't have enough time to do all the things I want to do. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to sign off for the night. I've been streaming for 3.5 hours. I'm going to go try to work on some of this stuff. Thank you guys for hanging out. I will be back tomorrow. We are doing Spy Stream tomorrow, so we're not actually going to be able to watch that presentation tomorrow. We're doing Spy Stream tomorrow. There's a Spy Stream starting at 6 p.m., so we might do a little pregame before a Spy Stream. I'm going to get out to the... For anyone that has volunteered for the Center of Left-Wing Studies, I'm going to be posting some stuff in the Discord. I want people to pick out an activist, and I want you to do a deep dive on any activist that you pick out. But everyone picks out one activist, and you're going to follow that one activist. If you want to volunteer to help with this, just go to leftwingstudies.com/volunteer, and what I need you to do is follow the instructions. This is the test to becoming a volunteer. Can you follow the instructions? I need you to follow the instructions. I need you to read what's there and follow the instructions. And if you can do that, then you will get into a position where you can help volunteer and you can get into the Discord and stuff like that. And I will be sending out stuff to people who are already in there tonight to follow up on some stuff. So yeah, we're just gonna chug along until we find someone with that rich uncle, or we find someone that can help us get millions of dollars in grants. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing, and we're just going to go slow, and we're going to do this pragmatically, and we're going to build it up. And, you know, I'm thinking about this over the course of years and years and years. I'm not thinking about this in the terms of months. I'm thinking about this. This is a lifetime project, and, you know, we're going to do what we can do. And that's all we can do, because I'm not going to engage with the bullshit online. I don't like the bullshit online. I don't like the toxicity. I don't like the constant Zionist bullshit. I don't like the bickering. I don't like the fighting. I don't like the feuding. I don't like the content creator culture. I don't like any of that. I like studying the far left. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to stick on my little corner of the internet. And you guys can hang out too if you want to. All right. That's all. I'll be back tomorrow, and I will see you guys then. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your night. Take care. We'll see you soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.